pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody ready? Why is it so warm in here?
I don't know.
Okay, we have two public hearings this evening, one of which is to be adjourned. Public hearing number one, the Four Sons Apartments, site plan, public hearing and site plan review regarding proposed town board rezoning to RM residential multifamily district and planning board site plan approval for construction of 24 apartment units in two buildings with corresponding parking and off-site connection to town sewer facility. Chief Road Zone BH Business Highway District 4 acres, grid, don't need that, unlisted action, Four Sons Realty Corporation owner. Hi.
Good evening.
Do you have a presentation, or should we just go to staff's comment?
Yeah,
We've seen this a few times.
yeah, with this project, our last submission, we addressed all the outstanding items on the letters, the review letters that we received at the prior meeting. We also received a variance from the ZBA. I'm sorry, not a variance, a zoning change
Right.
with the town board. So that was completed. So we're at a point now where we feel like we've really worked through the plan, really focused in on addressing the items and the comments from the board as well as the professionals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So staff is recommending that the board open and close the public hearing this evening, so long as they're in agreement and there are no outstanding issues. Staff's also recommending the adoption of a conditional site plan approval. I would like to point out that subsequent to our planning board field trip meeting earlier this week, where it was indicated that architectural review would be able to occur this evening, unfortunately, the applicant is unable to provide us with those samples as originally thought. So staff is recommending that that be a condition of approval.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. I move that the planning board open a public hearing.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Open a public hearing. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Anyone in the audience sign up, Carol? On this?
Nope.
Okay, anyone want to speak on this particular project? Okay, seeing no one, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Let me go around the room and see if anybody, any comments from the board. We'll start with Ben tonight. Comments?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, you're good?
Yep.
Okay. Carl?
Nothing much. We've seen it a lot. I did notice you included a bike rack there. I think the county bike and pedestrian plan committee, it recommends like the inverted U style, but
Yep.
it's up to you what you'd like to install.
I believe I saw that as one of the comments that was to provide a detail, and we can do that.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Nicole?
Hi.
Hi,
How are you?
good,
Good. So you got the zoning district change from BH to RM.
correct.
I know that you don't need a permit for the install of the force main, but I just want to reiterate that you are going underneath the Casperkill Creek. So if you can just ensure that the work doesn't pollute that body of water, I know it's not protected, but just if we could keep that in mind, that'd be great. Also, that area, you do have the Indiana bat. So if any tree clearing can be done between October and March, that'd be great also. So that's the only comments that I have for tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, good. Okay. Bob, anything?
No additional questions or comments.
Okay, good. Peter?
We just had a couple things, and Bill's cover letter said that the prior SWIP comments were addressed, but Andy didn't get a SWIP, so I don't know what happened, but, I mean, I'm sure we'll get it.
Right, the actual SWIP document didn't change. All the changes that were part of the comments that we addressed were part of the plan set that was revised. So the actual.
So there was no changes to the actual SWIP document?
To the report.
Okay, all right, I'll double check that with Andy, and then, the other things are just, outside agency approval such as the Department of Transportation. The DEC, now you do need a permit from the DEC to cross, the Casper Kill, right?
No, because the stream is not a regulated stream, so we do not need a permit.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
And
not.
did get a letter, to that effect.
was that a recent letter?
Yes, a recent letter.
Okay, all right, he didn't tell me that, okay. And then obviously you need the approval of the county health department, but other than that, we're pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? I think we're good. You want to do that?
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for Four Sons Apartments, subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of but not limited to the following items 1 through 8.
And 9, including the architectural review, and 10 for additional
Nine.
comments this evening.
I was going to do that on the next one. That's fine. We could hit 9, architectural review.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
pardon me, the last time I was here, a question been raised by Mr. Finelli about the density calculation, and I just am assuming that the answer that we provided to the board was sufficient. Great, thank you.
Thank you for remembering. Okay. Was it seconded?
Second, yeah.
It was seconded by Nicole. So call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Would you be prepared to do architectural review in September, on September 20th?
We will not, I'll have to make a submission to the board. I don't believe we're going to be ready in September.
Okay, so you'll let us know when you're ready so we can get it on the agenda?
And the applicant is fully aware that this needs to happen before any building permit could be pulled.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. And you can't cut trees until after, what was the date?
October.
October.
Well, actually, that was a question of mine.
Yeah.
I probably should have asked this beforehand. Is the architectural review a condition of the site plan, or so we can't actually get the site plan approval to start doing some work before that?
We typically don't do that.
Typically don't.
We typically do architectural review before the permits and things are pulled.
Okay, all right, I was under the understanding we can do some site work, and prep, get some site work done before the winter while we were working on architectural review.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we've done that before. I'm trying to figure out why you're not that far along, I guess, with the debris.
Well, as you know, with this project, there's a significant off-site improvement with putting in the force main.
Yes,
And that's something that the applicant is looking to do as soon as possible, which would be sometime this fall, because right now we're waiting for New York State DOT to issue the permit, which we've submitted for, to do the work within the right-of-way. So what he's looking to do is get these off-site improvements done, where in all likelihood, he wouldn't be starting the actual site work until the spring.
okay, that was my next question. Okay, so would you be adverse to us changing the previous resolution to take the architectural review out as number 9 and leave it as a separate open item to be done prior, obviously it has to be done prior to any building construction?
Right.
So that, that they're going to put the infrastructure in the ground and so on, but before they can build the buildings themselves, they come in for architectural review. Anybody have a problem with that?
I'd recommend making it a plan note, since he's making some other changes to the plans anyway. That way, we don't have to keep track of it. It's on the plan.
Okay, you can make it a plan note, so
Yeah.
how would you want to word
Just
that?
as instead of the condition being to obtain architectural review, place a note on, just place a note on the site plan stating that architectural review shall be obtained prior to issuance of the building permit.
Okay, we can do that.
So moved.
So moved. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. So we'll make it a map note that you can do the other work, but
Right,
obviously you have to come back to the board prior to any construction of the buildings for architectural review.
yes,
So I can't imagine you're going to put all that money into the ground for infrastructure and not build the buildings.
exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
good to go. Good luck.
Thanks.
Raymond Avenue School, public hearing number 2, site plan hearing regarding an amended application proposed anchor project use designation of a mixed-use project of 168 residential units and clubhouse, 110-room hotel, 20,842 square feet of commercial use, open area, and 279 parking spaces. The site development anticipates 2 3-story buildings of ground floor commercial and residential apartments above, and 2 4-story residential buildings, a 5-story hotel, a 1-story commercial building, a clubhouse, parking, and site amendment 25 and 31 Raymond Avenue zoned ATC Arlington Town Center, 6.4 acres and .4 acres respectively. It's an unlisted action. Town Board as lead agency, POS Management, Inc., contract vendee, Arlington Grade School and Arlington Central School District owners. We're going to adjourn this public hearing, and I move that we adjourn the public hearing till September 20th, 2018.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn the public hearing to September 20th, 2018. Call the question, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The adjournment was at the applicant's request. Okay. Now we move on to site plan reviews. I need a motion to allow public comment on agenda items and agenda items only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Does anyone like to comment on any other agenda items or any agenda items only on tonight's agenda? And the comment period will be 3 minutes. Yes, sir. Bear in mind, these are just comments, it's not a public hearing.
Okay.
There will be a public hearing on this project down the road.
Okay, my name is Jim Kitcher. I live on Van Sicklen Drive. I've been there for...
Okay, which project are you referring to, by the way?
Project number 4, Emergency 1.
For the record, thank you.
So,
I knew that, but I wanted to.
okay. Thank you for clarifying. So I've been there for 42 years. I'm the senior person on the block, more or less, and it's an old timer. I can remember driving in directly from Route 9 with a left-hand turn from the north. But again,
Was it
I'm here
paved?
mainly to try to express the general opinion of the whole neighborhood, which was expressed to Matt Wooliver at a meeting with him when he gave us a little bit of a heads up on the project. Again, somehow or other, a exit onto our street is in this project, as it was in the last proposal of the last owners of the property. And we voiced a lot of opposition, and I guess you've heard that before. So I'd like to just spend, if I only have a little time, again, I'd like to say, you know, we've gotten a lot of cooperation from Mr. Welty and the people in the town in terms of getting information on the whole approval process. So we're kind of up to speed and more or less in trying to slow the train. So the main thing that we can't see, or that I can't see specifically, is they want to put an exit onto our street, and after that, they're going to have to come up to our corner and turn right to get onto Route 9. And right now, I would say, have the hardest turn onto Route 9 of anybody in the, Poughkeepsie, Spackenkill area because of the number of cars coming down the road and the fact that our curb cut is a 10-foot radius curb cut from 1950. So we have a 1950 street in a, 2018 environment. And the street is only 24 inches wide, 24 feet wide, I keep saying feet. The street is about 24 feet wide at that corner, whereas the current curb cut where people have been coming in and going to this property for the last 50 years is 36 feet. So there really is enough room there to make 2 lanes in and out, especially if the people who own the building and are doing the project would move the building back a little bit. The building is set up right in the front of the site and doesn't use 40 feet in the back and doesn't, but in a meeting that we had with the 2 owners, it's clear that he thinks commercially, he wants the building as visible as it can be from Route 9, and that's one of the things that's driving him. He also said, he's got this opinion that he can put the exit onto our street somehow. He got it from somebody. I don't know who is the advocate for it, but is it the state that's dictating it, or is it the town, or is it just his economic? I don't know. I really don't know, but
That's 3 minutes, but you can finish up, give a couple more.
So, again, I've written a letter, and I've kind of detailed some of my issues. And a lot of the issues are covered in the comments by all the other organizations: landscaping, parking, planning, too much asphalt. It's like we're going to be, as it was presented first without the landscaping, it's like we're looking at a big parking lot with a building on it. But I'm sure we can, fix that. But
We will do our best.
the main thing is we're advocating is looking at the alternatives of either going straight out or going north, and not just accepting this proposal to come onto our street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment?
Evening, Tim Harnett, 12 Van Sicklin, and I'm here for the Emergency One project. And basically, you've read the letters from my neighbors. Basically, it's unanimous. We have the same concerns, which is it's a narrow 1950-something road. It doesn't meet commercial standards for an exit. It doesn't even meet 21st century residential standards. So I was looking at the packet, the application packet, or SESQA. And on the environmental assessment form, there's a question, this is filled out by the architect apparently, will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels? And they answered no. Well, there's going to be 2 tenants in there. How much are they going to be adding? The representatives met with us and said, possibly up to 40 to 50, I think, maximum. But now we learn about a second tenant. How much are they going to add to our road? It's only a stop sign at the end of that road. What's the maximum capacity of cars that can turn out in a given day? Route 9 South has, roughly 25,000 cars per day, mostly during daylight or daytime hours. I just wonder at what point, what number of cars will be unsustainable on the road. And everything else, I'll just say ditto, 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 because it's a small, narrow street with no sidewalks, kids playing, so on and so forth. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Taking some notes. Yes, sir. Anyone else care to speak?
There's somebody there, I see.
Oh, over here.
Hi. I've not addressed the planning board before, so I'm Yvonne Lobby. I'm a resident of the town. I'm also a member of Preservation Works, which is a national 501c3, whose aim is to proceed preservation and reuse of...
Which application are you commenting?
Oh, I'm sorry, Hudson Heritage. Okay. To see preservation and reuse of viable Kirkwide Plan hospitals in the U.S. I'm also a member of the Town Historic Preservation Commission and the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, just for transparency. I understand that the developers have put in submittals for Phase 1, but also to amend the developmental master plan. And I wanted to say that I appreciate the work that the developers and the planning department have done on the Phase 1 portion of the work. I think that the smaller neighborhood-style retail makes a lot more sense for this community. But I do have also concerns regarding the administration building. Despite the devastation of the fire, I believe it can be saved. The developers have stated intentions on saving the admin building, but actions speak louder than words. Since the fire in April, the only actions we've seen are, on an outside view anyhow, are that the developers have put a chain link fence around the building, which has already been breached, and added security by vehicular patrol. To say that the admin stand will be okay as it stands until Phase 2, which could be several years, remaining open to the elements as all this rain that we've just had and other trespassers, is demolition by neglect. It appears, though, that the developers are buying time to allow this building to get so run down that there will be no reason but to demolish it. The way for this to be resolved, I believe, is to begin work as soon as possible in the administration building. This will not only create activity on the site, which will deter trespassers, but it will also preserve our history and architecture. Also, because the Phase 2 plans that were submitted are in concept only, because we're really addressing Phase 1, but you're asking for amendments for the seeker plan, I wanted to bring up the north wing. In the submittals, it says that the administration building is the only national registered building. That's not true. The main building, which encompasses both wings, is also included in the National Register. And I believe that the north wing is equally as important because this is where the patient stayed, and it is part of the intended Kirkbride design. I do believe that the north wing could be gutted. I know that it can't be used as it is. However, I think that with some creative planning and design, maybe this could be incorporated into the proposed conference center hotel that they are adding to this plan. Let's see. I'm amending because I know I have 3 minutes. With regards to the proposed plan, sorry, I'm getting nervous.
Slow down, it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. With keeping in the design of the Kirkbride layout, we'd also like consideration to be made for the Center of Life Studies, which I think is a huge asset for this town. It's much needed. I work for the library part-time. I know that our parking lot is overflowing with cars from the classes. But to consider the symmetry of the intended Kirkbride design and keeping in mind if we have the admin and if we have the center, conference center, which I'm hoping will be the north wing or some part of it, to balance that out with the life studies. As it's drawn now is a little ambiguous, and it doesn't seem to lend itself to the historic character of the site. And then I did want to touch on the planning board. During the DEIS, you submitted a letter in writing to the developers emphasizing salvaged architectural elements be used and incorporated into the new construction. There's tons to work with up there. The only acknowledgement of that in the submission is that they've secured stained glass windows, which I believe are from the library, which is slated to be saved anyhow. But I would like to see more unique elements that I've pointed out previously in the comments for the DEIS incorporated into some of the South Campus work. And then my other question is...
We got a few more seconds.
Yep. My other question, I have other things that I could submit to Carol.
Well, there's going to be plenty of public hearings as this comes along. So this is not a public hearing.
Right.
So there'll be ample opportunity to comment on many different meetings as the months roll ahead.
Right. But I was wondering, how does the planning board determine if the amendments are within keeping of the intent of the project, the seeker? That's
our challenge. You'll hear us talking about that as we start to deliberate about that tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's weird to talk before the presentation.
Oh, come on.
Thank you.
That's why when we have the public hearings, the presentation goes first. Yes, sir. And the project you're, which?
Oh, I'm here for the Van Sislen project.
Okay.
My name is Michael Smith. I live on 8 Van Sislen Drive. I think everybody in our area is very up to having new business there. But looking at the plans with the dropping off onto our street, that's the one thing that we worry about. Also, right now, we have a fence there that kind of has been falling down and no one's been upkeeping it, and that's town property. It should have been up as resolutions years ago. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is that right now, I can't even pull into my street with my car if another car is parked there. I have to stop on Route 9 with my car. I have a Dodge truck. There's 3 other trucks on our street that actually, if another car is there, we have to stop on the road for them to pull out. If you are leaving the road, you actually it is very hard just to get into the right-hand lane. You have to actually try to get a little bit into the middle lane because you can't make the turn or you hit the curb every time. So I'm worried about that. How many cars are going to be coming in and out? Right now, I do have to stop in that spot probably 3 times a week, just coming in and out of the road, and we only have 10 houses. We also have 10 school-aged children that will be limited how far they can go up the road because people are going to pass that and miss the turn. They're going to pull onto Van Sislen and try to pull into there. If they miss that turn, they're going to be turning around in my driveway. And I really don't want that. I'm the first house on the right. When looking at this whole thing, they're talking about an ambulance coming in there once a day, have to bring people to the hospital. If you have to go right out of our road, it will take 5 minutes to get back to that point because you have to go around the cloverleaf at Spackenkill with all the lights. There are 9 lights. If you make an exit behind the thing going through Price Chopper Plaza, straight through where they had made a 4-way stop, it will actually alleviate 5 to 6 minutes of time. And if a person's having a heart attack, that's their life. Okay, and it also, they will be able to exit going north or south right out of there, make it a one-way in, make it a one-way out. I mean, we want something there because we have a lot of problems. A lot of people come over there, they dump stuff, they're right on our road, and nothing is kept in that area. But we would like something there. But we're really afraid of if the drop-off is coming out 100 feet, if there's 3 cars there, I'm gonna have to stop if a car is trying to get out. Their exit onto our street is I think 12 feet wider than the exit onto Route 9. They had 36 feet that they wanted. We have 24 feet. So it doesn't make sense. If you look at the plan, they have enough room to make a 4-way stop right there going through. It also would help because there's a lot of almost accidents at that little corner over there near Price Chopper. So, but thank you very much.
Made some good points. Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on any other agenda items? Yes, sir. Hi.
Kirk Sheridan, I live at 2149 New Hackensack Road. I'm here to comment on the Paula's Public House.
Paula's Public House, yes, thank you.
I've lived at my house for 21 years, and there's always been a bar next door. And I understood when I bought the house that was going to be the condition. Since Paula's taken over, there's been numerous incremental changes which have had a cumulative effect of detrimental effect on my ability to control the environment in and around my home. So for that reason, I'm opposed to any further expansion of business use of the residentially zoned property.
Are you the home immediately to the south?
On the hill across the road.
Across the road, okay.
I've also spoken to several of the neighbors who will be making comments regarding this application as well.
Is there anything in particular that you wanted to say about what you don't like about what goes on, or those are my words, not yours?
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's just things that you take for granted in your everyday use of your home. Like I can't leave my windows open anymore because it's a restaurant now, not a bar, so that my house gets permeated with the smell of the restaurant. You can't hang out laundry. Little things like that. Each individually, not a big deal, and it's a minor inconvenience from time to time. And I've dealt with minor inconveniences from time to time in the past when it was Gildernews and when it was Mulligan's. But, the cumulative effect of all of this stuff, and with the outdoor expansion last year, it really does negatively impact my life.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the planning department for identifying a lot of the situations that are existing on the property that should be addressed regarding the outdoor expansion that's already occurred. And I'd also like to understand why this expansion is being considered when the applicant was granted the previous expansion and agreed to, at the time, that there would be no further expansion of the business. So I hope that the board will consider the impact on the neighbors in conforming use of their property and the quiet enjoyment of their property. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on a particular? Are you Paula?
She's going to be up for the project, yeah.
No, Paula, you're going to be up. We're just doing public comment now.
I can't.
No, you're the applicant.
Oh, that's it.
Anyone, any other projects on the agenda tonight? Anyone wants to talk about? No? Okay, so I move that we close the public comment section on agenda items.
Second?
Moved in second, I call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. When we go through the public comment, as we just did, the board does not comment on what you said. We take in the information. When we have a public hearing, those comments get written, recorded, and looked at by staff and by the board and so on, and taken into consideration. So there's a little bit of a difference. Okay, that said, we're going to go to plan review number 1, Edmonds to Spenard lot line revision for proposed conveyance of a parcel portion from Edmonds to Spenard's 361 Vassar Road and 12 Toddy Lane, owned R20 residential, 20,000 square feet district, plus or minus 1.76 acres and plus or minus 1.17 acres respectively. Non-listed action. Myron Edmonds and Laquita Edmonds, owner, and James Spenard and Ophelia Spenard, owners. Hi.
Hi. Hello. This is Mr. Spenard, and I am Jim Sheridan, the surveyor, and Mr. Edmonds.
Over there.
Well,
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Edmonds are sitting over here. So we were here a month ago, and since then, we've revised the parcel, the sale parcel, to not take away highway frontage from Mr. Edmonds. He retains the highway frontage that he had, which was an issue. And we've eliminated the easement that was going to have to be written for utilities by moving the taking line away from the Mr. Edmonds' water line. And the map you have in front of you now is hopefully our final submission.
Okay, thank you.
The staff would agree with the applicant that the questions raised at the previous meeting have been satisfactorily resolved in the plat presented. There are 1 or 2 technical items we would like checked by the zoning administrator and for signature, and otherwise, those are here. Otherwise, we have no comments and would recommend that the planning board act upon a deck for an uncoordinated review and grant conditional lot line approval.
Thank you. Okay, Peter, anything from you?
No, the only thing we had wanted added was to show the approximate locations of the leach field, which are now on here, and, other than that, that was it for us.
Okay, thank you. Carl?
Not too much. So this new change preserves the frontage on Toddy?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Nicole?
No, nothing at this time.
Nothing here.
Nothing for you.
Okay, we're good. We're good to go.
I'm good.
All right,
Thanks, Chad.
I move that the planning board.
Wait, Ben?
I said I'm good.
You were quiet.
I move that the planning board conduct an uncoordinated secret review and determine that the Edmonds to Spenard lot line revision would not have a significant adverse effect on the environment, and that no environmental impact statement will be required for the reasons set forth in the attached negative declaration dated August 16th, 2018, prepared by the planning department.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional lot line revision approval and also grant the 50-day time extension of said approval from October 15th, 2018 forward to December 14th, 2018, subject to the following. Respond in writing to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies. Said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness and inclusive of the following numbers 1 through 6.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that the planning board grant conditional lot line revision approval and also grant a 60-day time extension of said approval from October 15th, 2018 forward to December 14th, 2018, subject to the following 1 through 6. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
No questions.
That was good. Very good. Plan review number 2, Camelot Village Mobile Home Park Site Plan. Planning Board has declared its intent to be lead agent and amended site plan review for proposal to combine an existing mobile home park with an adjoining 1-acre parcel and redevelop the 1-acre parcel for 2 3,600 square foot storage unit buildings for a mobile home park, for mobile home park residents. The existing garage and provide new access drive of 24 feet width located to create a fourth leg to the Sheath Road, Old Post Road intersection, 589 and 621 Sheath Road, zoned RMH Residence Mobile Home District, 29.5 acres, Camelot Village, New York, LLC owner. You're back.
I'm back. Is that working? Okay, as you know, we submitted an application for this site, which is the Camelot Village Mobile Home Park. I believe it's around 205 units that exist within the park. And then there's also a 1-acre parcel with an old house on it that the applicant was proposing to put 5 new homes and to add a secondary entrance to make the access to the park more safe, having 2 accesses. I know it's been several months since we've been back in here, and the owner of the park was getting a lot of feedback that a lot of the owners within the park need storage, where they're going out to self-storage units. And what he decided to do was revise the application, which we submitted back to the board, for 2 buildings opposed to the 5 new mobile homes that he was originally proposing. And the two buildings would provide storage that would be accessory to the park, so it would be only for the residents within the park. Because there are a significant number of units within the park, which I had mentioned previously at 205. With that, we're also relocating the entrance, or proposing to relocate the entrance opposite the Old Post Road intersection, so that there would be a 4-way intersection at the Sheath Road.
Let's relocate. You're going to close off the other one.
Yes, we're going to leave this. We're going to leave this access that exists now.
Yeah.
Originally, we had a secondary access proposed with the 5 new homes that would be just to the south of the intersection.
Okay.
So what we're doing is, with this particular plan with the storage units, we're able to bring the road straight out to the Sheath Road and Old Post Road intersection. So it would create like a 4-way.
Yep, okay.
Which we thought made a lot more sense than what the original design showed. And what that would do is that would allow us to condense the 2 buildings in the center of that 1-acre parcel and have access around it. So that's where we're at with the revised application.
Okay, thank you. Peter, anything for you before I go to staff?
Yeah. Bill, are we disturbing more than an acre here?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll need a SWIP, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And that hasn't been designed yet, because I wanted to get into before the board for some initial feedback, but we are showing an area in the front corner where we're planning on doing that.
Okay, and then I assume at some point you're going to meet with the highway superintendent to look at the site distances there?
Yes, and we actually did have a preliminary meeting.
Mark?
Yes. That was about a month ago, I believe. With Eric was there as well.
Oh, okay. Did that come up, site distance issues?
It was mentioned, but one of the things I pointed out is, it would be a four-way stop. So,
Oh, that's true, yeah, right.
you'd be able to see easily to the stop sign. And also with this application, which I should have mentioned initially, is by bringing that proposed entrance where we're showing it, that allows us to really open up the corners of the site. We're going to pull the fence back, and what's going to happen is the southbound approach on Sheaf Road would be much more visible to the northbound approach.
Yep, that's true.
Because that would just be an open grassed area now. So I think site distance as a whole will improve significantly on those two approaches.
Right, I mean, we just had some other, normal comments in regards to water and sewer stuff, but I think, the SWIP is just, the biggest thing, so once you
Right.
submit that, then we'll look at it.
And we're not proposing any bathrooms or any facilities that would need water and sewer. This is strictly storage.
Does it have to be sprinkled by code or anything like that? Is there anything?
I don't think so, but that's something I'll have to work with the building department, I don't think so. no, I
Right,
don't
I'll
think
look
so.
at that, but I'm pretty sure we do not need that.
Not habitable space.
Correct.
I guess as long as you're not storing any, chemicals in there or anything like that, right?
That would be the hope.
Thank you.
Let's see. This was last in front of the board January of 2017, if I remember correctly, at which time the board circulated for lead agency on a different plan. So therefore, the recommendation at this time is to notify those involved agencies of the change in the application, and that has to occur and give those agencies time to respond before the board can take any other action. So that's essentially the action we're recommending for the board tonight. In addition, we have provided a list of preliminary comments for the applicant to work on. Some of them a couple are worth mentioning. One is that in consultation with the zoning administrator, the storage use, it's not permitted as a commercial use. It is, according to the zoning administrator, it's permitted only as an accessory use to the mobile home park. So we're recommending notes on the plan to make that clear on the plan and not just rely on the code. That won't affect the layout at all, but we are having some questions about whether there's going to be, with the new access. I did meet in the field with Mark Pfeiffer. We didn't have the stop distances at that point in time. Mark was mostly concerned with making sure preserving the sight lines and making sure that those sight lines would be identified and maintained. So there's a couple of comments relating to that. We did also raise a question about the intersection being very wide open.
Yeah.
And perhaps considering some striping or minor modifications that would manage the traffic there a little better without reconfiguring the entire thing. It seems like some paint would help. There's also some questions about buffering for the adjacent residents. And also some taking a look at the screening from Sheaf Road and a number of other technical matters to be addressed on the plans. So those are our comments.
Thank you. We'll go around the board. Let's start with Ben, so I don't forget him this time. You can pick that microphone up. I don't know if it's working or not.
My question is just, you originally were going to put mobile homes there. Isn't there any other place on the site where the storage buildings could be, where it'd be in the back of the property? Like I see lot 11 to the lot left of lot 11 is open area. I don't know what's there. Wouldn't it be more attractive to have mobile homes there than storage units right up on Sheaf Road?
Well, first, there is no additional room because these storage buildings with the access around it, it's going to require a full acre of land, which is what we have there. So the answer to that is this is the only location where we can put this kind of storage that's needed for the park. We did set the buildings back, as far as we could off the road. We are planning on significant landscaping in the front to screen it. And then again, this location also works well with that and the secondary access, across from Old Post Road at that intersection.
Okay, all right.
They're going to be back for several more meetings, I'm sure, before.
Sorry?
They'll be back for several more meetings, I'm sure,
Yep.
before we get this
Okay.
resolved. And that's good. Thank you. Carl?
Sure. I just want to ask you a quick one. Do you know how many units and what the size of them are? Is it a lot of small units to accommodate
Right.
a lot of park guests or some big units?
Each building's planned on having 50, so it'd be a total of 100, which would be 50% of the park, approximately 50% of the park. And at this point in time, we'd be looking to have a variable size because, each resident might have different needs. Most of the units will be smaller units.
Right.
Because typically that would be, a lot of the residents would not want a big garage.
Right.
Versus just some small storage, which would be more affordable than a larger unit.
And makes more available as well, more units available.
Right.
I guess I have, following Ben's concern too, how they're going to look. You'll have to do architectural review on what these look like and how you're screening them, et cetera. But I also have a question of, the house next door. If you're going to have any pack lights or anything on the building, we don't want any light spillage onto that residence.
Right, we are showing wall packs, but they'll be fully screened, and it'll be a lower lighting than,
Because there's access to units on both sides of the building, right?
all four sides.
Yep. So the house is right next door, so.
Yep.
I can't imagine it'd be a high activity area as far as people going in and out, but.
Right.
But nighttime lighting and such would.
The lighting would be
Shine
more
in.
secure for security.
Right.
So it'd be a lower level lighting for something like this.
Just got to be careful of those high intensity LEDs these days, like the 5,000 Kelvin, they're just way too bright.
Yep.
What else? I guess generally, it's such a big area of pavement there. If you can move, if you're jutting the road out a little bit, if that could be moved back a little bit, that would also allow more sight distance. But I could see a future little mini roundabout there instead of a four-way stop because there's so much pavement area. But as Eric had suggested, paint to help channelize where the cars go can help as well.
Yep. And we most certainly could do that. And I would just point out that, our entrance would only be, our road is only 24 feet. So it's the minimal approach that would be needed for the intersection. So the actual connection point would not really increase that large area as far as turnaround. That would be maintained as it exists now.
All right, do you anticipate, traffic-wise, a lot of people using that exit versus the other one, or?
I think, we're thinking it's going to be split 50-50.
Okay. I notice, I see a lot of people walking there also, up to the Galleria, so that's a concern for pedestrians, that there's enough nighttime lighting as they're coming back from the Galleria potentially.
Okay, we can look into that.
But not so much lighting that's spilling into the house. So. But at that intersection, that's what I'm talking about, lighting at that intersection in a way for people to walk back into the neighborhood. That's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Nicole?
Hi. I just wanted to kind of talk about what Carl was just talking about. Are you proposing any crosswalks?
We are not.
You're not? Okay.
There are no sidewalks out there.
Okay.
So that's why I would not.
I noticed that because I drove through that a few days back, and I noticed all the kids were kind of in the middle of the road. And I did notice that there was a lot of storage sheds, so I think this will be beneficial for the homes there. Because if they can use this and get rid of those storage sheds that they have in the back, they'll have more, grass to, do things on.
And that's one of the goals with this project, is to actually give the residents a place to put things instead of outside.
Right. Are you going to have any parking over here? Are you proposing any parking? No?
We're not proposing any parking.
Okay. And was there some type of fence that you were possibly thinking about installing?
Fence.
At this point in time, there was no fencing proposed
Okay.
because access would still be needed from the park itself.
What
So,
about a fence just next to that house?
we can look into that.
Yeah,
for sure.
that might be a good idea. Also, did you have any ideas yet on what you're going to do for landscaping?
The plan that we have before you now is a little bit more on the conceptual side.
Okay.
And I know some of Eric's comments and review talked about really bulking up the landscaping
Okay.
and the buffer towards that house as well as the front.
Okay.
And that's
But I do think it would be
something we're going to
nice
look into.
that you, when you do this, obviously clear out some of that in the front, like you were saying, so that it'll be better sight view. Since it will be now like a four-way stop.
Right. In those areas, we would show them as like a grass lawn until we reached a point where, we're outside the sight distance or the visual line. And then
Okay.
at that point, we would start, with the landscaping.
Okay. Also, are you going to name this access road or?
Yes, it will be named, but we
Okay.
do not have a name right now.
Okay.
It's something that we're working on.
You have a thing with names. Is it,
Yeah, I
is
know
it,
the
is it Four Sons Apartments? We don't know.
Forson's Drive.
Right.
That's another project, yeah.
And I think my only last thing was, again, Indiana bats and the clearing between October and March.
Right. And this lot is
It's pretty
predominantly
clear.
wide open.
Yeah,
So,
but I think you do have a couple of trees.
Yep.
So just keep that in
yeah,
mind.
we would note that those trees wouldn't be able to be cleared until until a specified time.
Yeah, October 1st, I think.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you.
Just want to add to Nicole's,
Sure.
she mentioned the crosswalk. Ideally, the mall would put a sidewalk in there, there's so much foot traffic there. But barring that they haven't done that yet, then if they do that at some point in the future, then a crosswalk would be warranted there for sure. They haven't been in for any,
Okay.
Well, we also can work with this board as well as the highway superintendent, for any striping. That's something we can definitely look into and see if there's anything we can do with the crosswalk.
Sounds good.
Okay, I was there, and I'd like to go back to that new exit road and the location. I noticed that there's fencing and there's lots of shrubbery there, and where the stop sign is and where this is there's a curve there, and you were saying that earlier in response to Peter that you're going to take down some of that fence. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because that's also used as a screening for those 4 or 5 units there, and some is already starting to come down. But if you remove it, maybe push it back, or is that? All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yep. Right now, here's the fence line.
Right, yeah.
So what we're proposing to do is to relocate it and add to it so that it would flip back, and we're showing it along here. So the fence line would be maintained behind all the homes. So that would be from 13A over to 1-3A.
Right.
So we would maintain the stockade fence all the way across, but we would open up this whole area in the front to give all the visual sight lines that are needed for the approaching vehicles.
Because it looks fairly close to where the stop sign is and where the new exit is
Yes,
going
that's where the
to
fence
be.
is
It's going
now.
to be like less than a car length or something like that?
We're gonna be pushing that back, and I'm looking at the scale here, 20 to 25 feet would be, the fence would be pushed back away from that intersection, or away from Chief
How
Road.
far back from, what's the distance from your new exit to where the current fence line is that you're going to be pushing that back?
It's about
How many
50
sections
it's about-
of fence?
Yeah, where we're proposing the road is about 15 feet, I'm looking at the scale in the plan, it's about 15 feet from where the fence ends now, and then we're gonna maintain that same 12 to 15 feet where we're gonna end the fence, that we move back to the road that we're proposing.
Okay, so you're only going to move back about 15 feet worth of fence.
We're actually gonna be moving back 20 to 25 feet.
I mean distance, but I mean the length of fence. How much fencing? All the way back to the stop sign?
Well, I guess I apologize, I'm not understanding, but here's the stop sign.
Oh, okay.
And here, the fence right now goes to the stop sign.
Right.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take away or remove all that fencing, we're gonna go back about 30 to 40 feet.
Okay, that's, all right, that was my question.
Which goes further into the property, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna relocate that, or in all likelihood, put in new fencing, where we'd almost have a straighter fence now along the back of the units, so it would be at the same distance behind the units, but it would be working its way further away from Chief Road, providing a bigger open area for sight distance.
Okay. So the distance between the stop sign and the new exit is about 15 feet.
Correct.
Would it make sense to push that even back a little further? Or maybe closer or whatever, the stop sign?
Oh, the stop sign itself, we'd be pulling the stop sign further to the north.
Okay.
So you'd actually be, as you're driving south, you can hit the stop sign sooner.
Okay.
Because right now, the stop sign is so far into the intersection because of that turn, and I believe they did that for sight distance. But once we open all that up, the stop sign and the stop bar would be further to the north,
Okay, that makes sense.
and then, and that would be a little bit more standard than what's there now.
And now I noticed that some of that fencing further north is starting to come down. Are you going to replace all of that fencing or just
Yeah,
repair it?
I know the owner's been looking to make improvements to that fence, and when we talked about this, I believe he's gonna end up making this all the same fence, so it matches. And then
Yeah,
this
that'd
way,
be a
everything
good
gets
improvement.
repaired.
No, I know, I guess the Swift, you said you're waiting.
Yeah.
So I noticed that drops down, that when you're in the complex, there's maybe, what, 7, 8 foot drop?
Yeah, it's about an 8-foot drop.
Right.
And the area you're talking about is in this area here. And what we're gonna do is maintain that existing grade with our new stormwater pond. And then we're gonna need to build up the, where the buildings are in the drive aisle. And then that would give us all the grade that we need to make the drainage work.
All right. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Bob?
That new access road that you're gonna provide, is that gonna be a private road or?
Yes, private.
Private, okay. And having that four-way intersection, I was there a couple of days ago, coming back from the train station. As you're coming north, I mean, this has nothing to do with your proposal, but I think this is a town responsibility. You can't see the stop sign until you're almost at it. The trees. And also, the same thing exists, not as badly, but coming south from Route 9 or coming down the hill. The stop sign, I mean, you might know it's there. I know it's there because I've been here for a long time, but people who don't, it's very easy to miss it if it's there. I mean, hopefully they're slowing down. Coming the other way, northbound, I was right on top of the sign, and I know it's there. And then right the last 6 feet, you can see the stop sign.
Yeah.
It's not visible
I've got a note to call
Yeah.
the highway
So
supervisor.
I think it just highlights the fact that, and I guess this is a town responsibility, the maintenance of that
town.
intersection to keep those signs visible is
town.
even more important if you're gonna have people with another approach. So I kinda like whoever mentioned it, maybe a roundabout might be a better solution than.
The rush hour, you see, backs up quite a bit on Chief Road to the stop signs and everything, so that's why I thought of a mini roundabout there. You only need about 100 feet of pavement to put one in. And I don't know if anything like that's been done with just paint on the road. You don't have to, versus so trucks can still turn and everything, but not any kind of,
Most of them that we've
Curbs.
seen always have some kind of a raised island, just, to channelize traffic, right, or else.
yeah,
But given the number of big trucks come down that way to go to
tough.
Tilcon, I don't think.
Right.
they
you
really-
wouldn't want to raise
Yeah, I
that,
don't think
one
that
on a
would-
raised island, but you
Yeah.
could have a, painted circle or something, and I don't,
Okay, we can,
I don't know.
they can talk
Something to
to,
think about.
we can talk to Mark.
Well, sure, the
Anything
trucks
else?
will.
I think,
I don't want you to feel neglected.
I think it's pretty generous of the owner to give up 5 mobile home lots or lot rent for storage units. But I don't understand why, but I guess that's,
Well, I got thank you.
Charge for it.
I got a question to that end. The applicant own other mobile home parks?
Yes,
Will these storage units be made available to those residents of other parks?
not that I'm aware of. I explained to him that this would have to be accessory for this park only. He's fully aware of that, and that's something we discussed when we were originally thinking about this. And I did some preliminary work, as far as looking through what's required in the town, and
Will they be-
so he's aware of that.
Okay, there should be map notes to that effect, I assume?
Sure.
All right. I don't know how you monitor it, but there should be at least map notes to that effect. Because to think 50% of the residents are gonna spend more money on a storage unit seems kind of high, but I don't know the business that business real well, so remains to be seen.
Right, and I believe with this particular plan, these buildings are very basic as far as construction with these units, and it's something that he feels that he can offer to the residents better than if they had to go somewhere else.
Great. I did drive through there the other day. I had never been down through there, and it's actually a very nice park. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of homes in there, so I would, hopefully that will make use of the storage.
okay. All right.
I move that the planning board declare its intent to continue being the lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed revised project as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department's circulation of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the revised application to all of the involved agencies.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, the planning board declare its intent to continue being the lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed revised project as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department circulation of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the revised application to all the involved agencies. You call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I move that the planning board defer further action pending its continuation as lead agency on this application and direct the applicant to respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, including but not limited to the following: 1 through 10, and 11, I see there's an August 15th supplement from the planning department.
Yep.
Second.
And seconded that the planning board defer action pending its continuation as lead agency on this application and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board, those received from town departments and agencies, but including but not limited to the following 1 through 10. Call the question?
11.
I
Okay.
added one.
Which one did you add?
To the supplement.
The supplement, including the supplement. Call the question, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 0. Can't forget the supplement. Oh, that's right, the coastal assessment form, et cetera, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
See you again.
Thanks, Bill.
Come up with some names. You got 2.
He's just taking over Sheep Road.
Huh?
He's taking over Sheep Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
That's right, you got all the Sheaf Road covered. Okay, number 3, foam and wash, 1942 South Road, plan amendment to add 7 new vacuum stations with a 6-foot wide concrete walk and 2 vending stations. 1942 South Road, Zone BH Highway Business, 2.27 acres, Type 2 action, TGS Associates, Inc. owner. Hello.
Good evening. Jay Deasing with Maury Architects, here with Gary Baywright from TGS Associates. This is a relatively small project. It's a reapproval of a project that the board approved February 2016, I believe. So we're just getting around to doing it now, so we have to come back and see you. But we are adding 7 vacuum stations out at the north corner of the property, and then there's also just a sidewalk along the backside of those vacuum stations that will be located there. And I don't know if you're familiar with Gary's project down in Wappingers, but they're the arch-style vacuums that are a lot more convenient for customers to use, so it's going to be the same vacuums that are down there. Only other topic on the site that we're discussing tonight is I guess there was a complaint or a concern from the neighboring property to the south about some cross-traffic between the 2 parcels, so we're going to be adding a concrete curb along that whole section of property there, and then we're going to restore the lawn back to just back to lawn and removing the gravel and the pavement that took place there.
Excellent. Thank you. This is Eric's.
Yep. Yes, so staff is recommending that the board take the necessary actions to reapprove this application. We had talked with both the applicant and the adjoining neighbor about the complaint. I think the adjoining neighbor just asked that the curb reveal on that curb be high enough to deter traffic of, say, 6 inches or more. And he also suggested that, I know the board had some concern about its visibility. The adjoining owner asked that perhaps it be painted yellow for visibility. If the board is satisfied with that, then that would address the comments that we might have. We would just ask that the board add to the list of comments the town engineer review, because when we do get that detail, I'd like the engineer to take a look at it.
Of the curb?
Of the whatever curb detail there is, the detail on the plan for the curb.
Okay.
I don't review those.
Sure. Oh, we do have a curb detail that is on the plan already. It would be the same detail.
Oh, is it the same detail?
It's a 6-inch high curb, so it's on the plan, and we intend to use the same one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Board to Ben?
No.
Good. Carl?
Sure, the vacuums sound good, the additional ones, because it's always busy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to, from an urban planning perspective, it's a connection for people to get out to that signal is desired, but if the neighbor doesn't want it.
Yeah,
there's not much you can do with it.
It's convenient, and I know everybody encourages that now, so we're a little disappointed about it.
Something to encourage. I don't know why they're so opposed to it, but.
Yeah, in Fishkill, they asked us the opposite. They told us to put a curb, to.
Unless you can get a cross easement and legal agreements,
right, of course.
You can always come back if they agree to allow that to happen.
Okay.
I mean, it's not at a convenient place, I guess, right now, because if there's a line at the car wash, but people make use of it. I guess in addition to the curb, I don't know how much of the land you own, maybe a little bit of landscaping, so people who've been used to doing that don't run into the curb.
Yeah, the property line is pretty tight there, so, I mean, I think the curb will do it. I don't think there's a lot of people that'll
if the
jump a
property's
big
their
curb.
side, then, no. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Nicole, anything?
The only thing that I had was just to reiterate a note that was from the water department that the backflow prevention was needed. So that was the only comment.
Yeah, it need to be tested.
Yeah.
Every year we do it.
Yeah,
And they
I
send
think
it
the
to
last
us.
time it was tested was like 2016 something, right?
Well,
Okay.
No?
They do it every year.
Okay.
We have it's on a rotate. We
Okay.
do every location at the same
You
time.
gotta submit the
and they
certificate.
send them in.
Yeah,
So,
maybe.
yeah,
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
the
can
guy
just,
didn't submit it at that time.
yeah,
Yep.
so if you can just get that done.
No problem.
Okay, that's it.
Nothing here?
Thank you.
Bob?
So you're taking out the old ones, you're putting new ones in, so these, if I recall, their cars can fit between the existing ones.
Each one is a spot.
Yeah, the existing ones, 2 cars would fit between, that's correct.
One's using the setup on the right, the other one on the left, so these will be 1 car in each one.
Oh, yeah, so you can use one on each side of your car to vacuum left or right.
Right, and they fit in the same space. You're not expanding the.
No, nope.
Okay.
Good. Anything, Peter?
Nope.
Okay.
I move that the planning board determine that the proposed activity is a type 2 action and is not subject to seeker review pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.5 Section C, Section 7 of the seeker regulations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The planning board determined that the proposed activity is a type 2 action and is not subject to a secret review, subject to 6 NYCRR 617.5 sub C sub 7 of the secret regulations. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I move that the planning board waive the site plan public hearing for this project in accordance with Town Code Section 210-151 sub D.
Second.
Moved and seconded. The planning board waive the site plan public hearing for this project in accordance with Town Code Section 210-151D. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for the foam and wash site amendment, subject to the following: items 1 through 7 and 8, town engineering review.
Right. We have a second? Moved and seconded that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for the foam and wash site plan amendments to the following 1 through 7, and we had 8 for the town engineer review. Call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 6-0.
I move that we waive architectural review for this project.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the planning board waive architectural review for this project. Call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking care of that curb and reseeding that area, making it look nice. And like I said, if you ever get your neighbor, give you a cross easement and all that legal stuff, you're welcome to come back.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Application C4, Emergency 12555 South Road, lead agency intent, site plan review for construction of a new 6,200 square foot single-story structure and demo of the 11,000 square foot existing building, yay. 2555 South Road, zoned HB Highway Business District, 0.67 acres, unlisted action, FATM Properties LLC owner. Hello.
Good evening. My name's Kevin Conklin with Conklin Architecture. We have Dennis Lynch with Day Engineers and Jim Devitt with FATM, the owners of the property. We are proposing tonight to remove the existing 11,000 square foot building, and in its place we will be constructing, or we're proposing to construct a building, a single-story building about 6,200 square feet. The property is currently just over, or now it's just over 3/4 of an acre. So we have this whole non-conforming property, it's supposed to be 2 acres, we've got just about 3/4. So with that comes some challenges on our end with the area in bulk. Well, before we get into that, so the application that I submitted, or that my office submitted, was preliminary. There was some information missing regarding landscaping, lighting, probably various other, or I know many other details regarding turning radiuses and that sort of stuff, which has all been addressed in the comments from everybody, from the town and the county. So the proposed project, again, it is a single story. It will be within all of the zoning requirements, with the exception of we will need a side yard setback. We are reducing the nonconformance. Currently, the property is almost entirely paved. We are going to certainly reduce that. The building is getting smaller. Everything's getting a little more where it needs to be. Since the plan was prepared, we've hired day engineers. So we've got Dennis here. Dennis has been working on, updating the plans, adding all the other information that is missing and has been commented on, to get us to the next step with you guys.
And I'd just like to take a minute here just to kind of introduce what we're all about. I don't know how much you guys know about us, but Emergency One, we're an urgent care center. We've been in existence since 1995. Our original location is in Kingston, and it's been in the same location since that date 23 years ago. We have additional locations in Hyde Park and New Windsor, and once again, those locations are in their original location. So we're kind of different than some of the other urgent cares you see pop up and then disappear. We've been around, and again, we don't move. Just wanted to comment on a couple of things. We obviously, well, personally, I'm actually a resident of Spack&Kill. I have kids in Nassau and Hagen Elementary, so anything we do in our backyard actually matters to me, and so I'm not coming in from the outside trying to change what's happening there on Route 9. We recognize, and we've talked to some certain members here about some of the concerns in the community. We've actually gone and met with some of the individuals who are here in the room today to address and listen to what their concerns are. The result of those conversations has actually changed some of our plans as far as what we're looking at. Some of the things like moving the entrance onto Van Sicklen up closer to Route 9 as close as we can with the conditions that exist there. We've walked through the property with them. We've talked about landscaping. And again, we kind of met with them a little early because we're not at that point yet. And yes, we are going to landscape the place. It's not going to be a concrete and asphalt facility. So we've talked about retaining trees and some of the natural buffers that are there, and those are all things that we want to do. If any of you guys have seen any of our other locations, you'll know what we do, and we'll know the level at which we do those things and beautify the community at the same time. The other big thing that's kind of cropped up is the issue of a tenant in there. And we're not even sure that that's where we're going, but we decided that we better at least get that out on the table on the front end. If we do have a tenant in there, it's going to be a complementary professional business. In other words, like a physical therapist. The traffic that's going to be generated for something like that is going to be minimal. Many times it's going to be somebody that's in our facility. They're going to walk around the corner and go there. So it's not going to necessarily increase the traffic dramatically. But we don't even know if we're going to go there with that. We may just use it for additional expansion for ourselves to use for training rooms and offices and that type of thing. So, but we didn't want to have to come back to the planning board with that down the road if the usage changed, so we wanted to kind of just get it out there at this stage of the game. And then the other thing, just to speak on the traffic, I mean, if you look at the numbers of our other facilities, and we've talked to the community about this, we're talking about 2 to 3 cars an hour. And out of those 2 to 3 cars an hour that are going to be entering and exiting, some of those guys are going to go straight out on the Route 9. So we really can't predict what's going to be on Van Sicklen. It could be minimal, but even at the most, it's not going to be altering the traffic patterns that greatly. So I just wanted to kind of give you that background and hand it back over to Kevin if there was more, or Dennis.
The layout that was submitted, which I know there was a comment about the location of the refuse enclosure, we did come up with an alternate plan, which was to reconfigure the parking a little bit and have the refuse enclosure here so that they can actually come in, pull straight in. It makes it a little easier than picking up in that location. It's an easier maneuver, less backing up. As part of that, I mean, we would need since this has double frontage, it would be in the front yard, so we would need approval from the board to have that located in the front yard setback, because this is a town road. Some of the other things, the building that we're showing now, as we mentioned before, is smaller. It's actually in the same footprint as the existing building. This right now currently is all parking lot. We're going to landscape that. We also created these pockets between the parking and the building where we have a lot of space that we could provide landscaping in there. I know there was a lot of conversation about coming on to the residential road. We will need a highway permit for that, so we'll work with the town to make whatever improvements we need to do that in that road.
Cars can come straight in instead of here.
Okay, thank you.
Kristen. Yep. Okay, thank you. So just a couple of things, taking a step back for a moment. The applicant is here as a first step in their process, basically to introduce the project to you, as this is the first time you are seeing it on the record too. Also, we wanted to circulate for lead agency. The project as proposed would be an unlisted action for a coordinated review, so that circulation would be a required first step. So we thought that would be symbiotic with coming in, presenting the plan, and initializing that step, which was something that had occurred a couple of years ago when this particular parcel had been before the board and then nothing had gone forward from there. Also, just wanted to note, it was read into the record, which was actually incorrect. That site acreage is actually 0.78 now that the owner of this, the applicant has acquired that 0.11 acres from the town. There are some concerns or just issues I just wanted to tighten up in the seeker. They're identified in your staff recommendation letter from the planning department. If you had additional comments or concerns about those or had questions about what you needed to provide to address those, feel free to contact us. I think they're fairly straightforward. It's just providing supplemental information to confirm what you have identified. Again, this is a preliminary site plan review. This was meant to come before the board a first round. There are a number of comments, as it was indicated. There are some sheets missing, identifying landscaping, and those of things of that nature. I would like to also note that at 4:40 this afternoon, we did receive comments from DOT. They are also preliminary, and we expect to get a little bit more into that as this process continues. I think it's worth noting as part of their comments, and especially given the concern of the public, and the board should be aware, and I know that they are aware, we've discussed this at our planning board field trip meeting. The access on Van Sicklen Drive is relevant to this discussion, and I think it will be going forward. DOT has identified that they are amenable, and again, these comments need to be further digested, obviously only having received them 20 minutes before the meeting started. But the access on Van Sicklen is a concern, and I think that we need to continue to have that discussion, and I do think that DOT is amenable to you using the access that's on Route 9 as it exists currently, but potentially narrowing the curb cut. But yes, we can have that discussion a little bit further, and I'm sure the members of the planning board will also be bringing up some of their concerns to supplement this.
Thank you.
Well, again, as everybody said, there's a lot more, details that need to be shown, drainage and all that stuff, lighting. But just, looking at the site plan, have you guys had any preliminary office meetings with these guys in terms of alternate, layouts or anything like that?
No, but based on the comments that have been received from DOT and some of the other discussions that have been had with the planning board, I think that would be a natural next step to include engineering and planning staff.
Because as I'm looking at it, again, this is just a quick look. It would be nice to see some other alternates in terms of how the building is placed on the site, where maybe there's an opportunity for the cars to get squared up better to be able to use the current curb cut that's there, on 9 now. And I know everybody, the trend is to try to push the buildings up closer to, the street because that's, like the trend. Maybe this is one that, that may not be, the case in order to be able to use, the access points. But again, that'll come through, meetings in the office and looking at some different like layouts. But, the access onto Van Sicklen, depending on how that takes out, some of the comments that we had gotten about, it's hard to get in and out of there now because, the radiuses are not like big enough. If there's going to be any consideration to Van Sicklen Drive access, there would certainly have to be improvements probably made to, the radii there coming onto like 9. But again, that's, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of conversations between the town and the Department of Transportation and the applicants, obviously. So, at this point, we don't really have a lot because there hasn't been a lot, of detail that's been presented so far. But I think there's opportunities to look at alternate, layouts that may be able to use that curb cut efficiently.
Thank you. I'll go first. Since the building's coming down, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
You have a great opportunity to solve a problem. You have a great opportunity to solve a problem. And the way I look at it now, and again, this is preliminary, I don't see any reason we need to use Van Sicklen Drive at all. Okay? And given what we just heard in preliminarily from DOT, with the building going back, it could be moved back. I agree with Peter. Yeah, the trend is we'd like to closer to the road so you don't see all the cars, but this may be with a one instance where that may not work.
That's right.
Okay? And this is my opinion. So I think we need to all take that into consideration, but we're working with a whole new palette, if you will. And by moving the building back and squaring it up and doing all the different kind of things, I think you can accommodate a lot of things, solve a lot of problems. And by the way, I think it's a great application for this site, and it's certainly needed in the town. And I know from other people, you have a good reputation as an emergency one place. So that's what I got to say. I'll start with Ben.
I think this is a good project. Glad to see it happening. But again, at this point, as everybody else has said, it's too soon to make a lot of comments. Glad to see that the applicants working with the community, listening to the residents, and they're willing to work to adjust where they have to. The Van Sicklen, that's a big concern with the neighborhood. Maybe it should just be an egress. I don't know. There's a lot more to go, but I'll wait to see.
Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, I have to reiterate that. It's great that you're going to renovate this eyesore here in the town.
No, remove it.
Remove it and start off. But as John said, with a clean slate, there's opportunities to do some things. We've got several letters and comments from the neighbors there. Basically, their fence and the trees along there have provided a nice buffer from noise from Route 9, as well as just the commercial hustle bustle there. And having that all come down is a big change for them. They're going to get light spillage, noise, etc. So we're going to be looking at any way to maintain that fence, I think, in our review. I think another alternate, as I think has come up, is I was out there looking at the topography a little bit, and it's not as bad as I thought it was to get down to the Hudson Harbor Drive and get to the mall, and that allows traffic to get out to the signal for any northbound emergencies going on. As I think one neighbor pointed out, you have to go through a lot of loops on Spackle to get northbound with any emergency. But I don't know, you don't have any ambulances on the site, or it's just okay. But it's residents accessing it and getting back home to go north, etc. I'd like you to show on the plans, the house locations on Van Sicklen, so that we can see, where they line up.
Mm-hmm. Good idea.
With that. What are your hours of operation predicted?
We operate on weekdays 8 to 8, and on weekends and holidays 8 to 4. And we are closed on Christmas and New Year's and Easter and Thanksgiving.
All right, so 8 p.m. is good. And after hours, I suppose you have some security lighting, but as I mentioned in a previous project, we don't want light spillage into the neighboring homes on Van Sicklen, which is currently what the fence helps prevent as well.
Yeah. But you don't want us to keep that same fence now, do you?
Well, it needs some repair. No.
No, and actually, if you look at our New Windsor
It's been there a
location, you'll see how we did the fencing there. It's very, very nice. And,
Take a look at that.
and just to comment on that too, just on the trees along there, we want to keep those trees as well. You know, we're not looking to just bowl those down and just make it barren. So if the Van Sicklen egress occurs, then we would only take out the 1 or 2 trees we need to make that happen, and we want to keep the rest of that buffer.
I'll have to take a look at your New Windsor site. I guess you clarified a little bit about the second tenant. That was a concern of mine, that it wasn't going to be a high volume traffic thing. And I guess, we want the landscaping, but it has to stay low near Route 9 where Van Sicklen comes out for line of sight distance issues that Van Sicklen has today, because the brush gets overgrown there currently, and they have some issues with getting out onto the road.
We've noticed.
And that goes also with the signage. Right now, there's 2 signs
Right,
in the
pole
front.
signs there.
Our proposal is to move the sign to the north, so
That'll
the
help
appropriate
as well.
location on the northern corner of the site.
I mean, that was a question I had as well, is, we're trying to minimize pole signs in general in the town. I don't know if you need a pole sign in addition to the building sign. But signage is something we can look into. I think you're gonna have to get some variances on the signage as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we'll have to address as we get closer to that actual piece. Our experience has been, I mean, New Windsor is a perfect example. We did a pedestal sign there, and we're completely lost. We're surrounded by pole signs on all sides of us, and people drive right by us and call us and say, "I didn't see you. Where were you?" And we say, "Oh yeah, turn around. You'll see it." So that is kind of an issue for us. We do want to be up. Doesn't mean we have to be at 20 feet, but I think if we have a pedestal, as soon as a bus pulls out of, that private road, you're not seeing the sign. You don't know that we're actually there until you've gone by us.
Okay.
And now that brings an issue of Van Sicklen and so on and so on, so.
I don't think too many buses come out there, but.
Well, no, actually, out of there, they do. They come right out of Price Choppers, the county buses, and they pull right out on the Route 9.
Yeah, they do. They park right
Yeah.
at Price Chopper.
I take it back.
Yeah, it's my backyard, so.
Yeah, appreciate that you live in the area and have a knowledge of how the traffic flows, et cetera.
We can put lights on top of the sign and go around like red lights.
Yeah, that's right.
Just kidding.
Okay, make sure I covered my comments here. All right, I think that's all I have for now, but
You're getting an idea where we're coming from, so I think that's great.
it's great to have a clean slate to work with, but we gotta see what we can do to protect the neighbors as well.
Nicole?
So I just wanted to reiterate a note from the water department, that there's 2 water services going to that building. So you're going to choose one and cap off the other one, right?
Yep.
Also, there was a note here from the fire department that standard fire department notes weren't on the plan. Is that something that you changed?
That's likely the case, and that will be addressed on the.
We'll include them on the next submission.
Okay. Have you found any hazardous materials on this site since it was a garage?
We
or-
did the phase 1 and phase 2 studies. They've been done. The soil tests have been done, and nothing was found.
Nothing. Okay.
Would you, and I don't believe these were submitted, but if they could be submitted to the planning department?
Anything you got, we want.
Okay.
You can redact any confidential information or proprietary information.
Or cross it out.
Sure. And then there's asbestos, but we're dealing with that as well.
Okay. And unfortunately, I'm with the board. I drove onto that site, and that drive that has the handful of houses on it, I mean, That was a driveway. That wasn't, that wasn't a street. I'm sorry. It's too tight. I mean, I mean, obviously,
You
you'll
mean
have to
Van-
go.
Van Sicklen, where it comes out, yeah.
You'll have to go through the motions and see, if you get approvals for that, but I'm with the board. If you push the building back and you have just that Route 9 entrance and exit to the building, I think that would probably be fine. I mean, we understand what you're doing here, especially if you have ambulances coming. Obviously, you want to try and have 2 entrances and 2 exits, but that street is just too narrow to have that kind of traffic. So, I mean, obviously, you'll have to go through it. This is just one, but I just want to make that comment. And also, did you comment on how many parking spaces you're going to try and have, especially if you have like 2, you have the emergency one and then you have that second retail space?
Yes.
I don't remember seeing that.
As per the code, we're required to have 25 parking spaces. We're showing 28 currently.
Okay, 28.
That's based upon the 4 per 1,000 that's required in the highway business.
And then how many handicap are you?
There'd be 2.
2. Okay.
There'd be, yes, 2.
2. Okay. And I guess, I mean, again, you're gonna have to go through this, but for the ambulances, are you going to have like a separate area for them to park and that type of thing, or no?
At this point, that's not something
It's just something they'll come up to the entrance and.
It's not it's maybe a daily occurrence.
Just wondering
but
if
there would
Maybe
be
not
some
even a
type
daily
of
occurrence, but-
ambulance
I was
parking.
gonna say, no, how often do you get an ambulance? Once a day, twice a week?
Yeah, twice a week, 2-3 times a week, maybe. I mean, it depends, especially in the early days, we're probably not getting them once a month even, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Okay, and that was it. Thank you.
Rocco?
Yeah, just to continue with the ambulance thing, is that coming in with patients or?
Oh, no,
going
no, no,
out?
no.
Yeah, they're going out.
Just so you guys understand, yeah,
Right.
the ambulance
That's what I
thing, these
thought.
are not necessarily emergency type situations. They're not bringing anybody to us ever. Ambulances are not allowed to bring patients to us. They have to go to the hospital. So this is if we have a serious condition that we need to transfer to the hospital, we call the ambulance, they come pick them up and take them to the hospital.
All right, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I was going to mention the hazardous waste, and you've gone through that, you've got the certification, you're going not to provide that. I mean, I want to also echo the Van Sicklen Drive, it's like a shoehorn there, and, maybe work with the planners to see where you can relocate the building to make it work for everybody and solve some problems. Thank you.
Bob, anything at this point?
Nothing additional from me.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Anybody else?
I just want to add, if you do have the ambulances, even the hospitals are northbound, so that is a little more reason to be able to get out
play that
access
game.
to the light through the mall there.
But of course, as you guys are probably aware, it's a private road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we may not be able to do that because
Have you
it's
reached
really
out?
out of our hands and it's out of the town's hands.
Tim, have you reached out to them, though?
We have reached out to them.
Part of the,
Called you.
What's that?
Did anyone call you?
I've spoken with them, but
good.
it's too preliminary right now to even comment
That's
on.
progress.
Yeah.
I believe part of the road is owned by the mall and part is by,
But the actual
Hudson Harbor Drive.
Hudson Harbor Drive is the private road that's owned by Hudson Harbor,
Right.
whatever that
well,
corporation
when
is.
there was a big pothole there that killed my car a few years ago, and I went to Hudson Harbor Drive, said that portion going north, going up to Route 9 was owned by the mall.
Really?
That's
That's interesting. I have not heard that.
About 2 years ago.
Okay.
There might have been an
All I
excuse.
know is they never
It might
repair
have
those
been an
potholes.
excuse, because if that's owned by Hudson Harbor all the way out to Route 9, they should have
Yeah.
taken care of the
Seems like it
pothole. And
probably is.
that same pothole's still there. It's been filled a
That
couple
is.
times. But it's still damaging.
Thank you. I think that, given what you got to work with, I think we can work this out with using what you got and solving a whole myriad of problems, because otherwise you're going to get involved with DOT.
That's what we're trying to avoid, yes.
And I think that's what everybody tries to avoid.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem.
Yeah.
Anyway. Carl, want to do the lead agency?
So I guess we got to figure out who really owns that road. That's part of the issue. I move that the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency, coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action, and authorize the planning department's circulation of notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies.
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded that the planning board declare its intent to be a lead agency, et cetera. Call the question, all those are, anyway, call the question. All those in favor of?
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I move that the planning board defer further action on this application pending establishment of a lead agent and direct the applicant to respond to the comments of the planning board and those received from departments and agencies, including but not limited to the following 1 through 9, and comments from tonight.
Moved and seconded, the planning board defer action on this application pending establishment of a lead agency and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, including but not limited to following 1 through 9 and 10 being the comments from this evening. And call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon. Wendy's, 753 Main Street. Site plan approval for a proposed wide lane drive-through for an existing Wendy's restaurant, 753 Main Street, zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center. 0.96 acres on listed action. PJM and Associates owner. PJM? Okay.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dan Chanal. I am with Dynamic Engineering. I am here on behalf of the applicant this evening, Wendy's Corporation, in regards to the existing Wendy's located at 753 Main Street. So what I have in front of you here is just a survey of the existing conditions. So briefly going over the existing conditions of the site. Main Street runs in a east to west direction at the bottom of the site, which is to the south of the subject site. West Springside Avenue runs in a east-west direction to the northern portion of the site. The site currently consists of a little bit of an antiquated style of a Wendy's, more modern to the 80s and 90s style of architecture for the Wendy's. There is currently two driveways along Main Street, one providing ingress only and the other providing egress only. There's also a full movement driveway on West Springside Avenue, providing counterclockwise circulation through the site. It's a one-way circulating site. The current order point for the drive-through is located at the northern end of the drive-through, or northern end of the site, just one order point. The drive-through wraps around the building. Parking is provided on the eastern, western property lines, angled parking head-in, as well as 90-degree parking along West Springside Avenue. Currently, the building consists of approximately 2,998 square feet. It's about 15 feet in height. There is 68 existing seats within the restaurant. And there's also, which is portion of the subject of this application, there's an existing, what Wendy's calls a greenhouse element to the existing building. It's basically just a glass enclosure with additional seating inside of that. And additionally, there is one building mounted sign that is facing the Main Street frontage, consisting of about 30 square feet in area. There is additionally an existing freestanding sign on the Main Street frontage, which is approximately 20 feet high and consisting of about 61 square feet. And there are 4 existing directional signs, 2 at the driveway on West Springside Avenue, and then 1 at the entrance driveway and 1 at the exit driveway, basically just directing customers to which driveway is the entrance, which one's the exit, and the rear. So it's a brief overview of the existing conditions. The subject of this application is basically to modernize the site, bring it up to more recent Wendy's if you have seen them in the area. Basically, it will be a refresh of the building architecture to bring it up into their newer standards, as well as some drive-through improvements that would be to add an additional order point to the drive-through. If you're similar or familiar with Wendy's, their claim to fame is kind of a fresh restaurant. They make everything fresh. So the addition of the second order point, essentially what that does is allows the restaurant to take 2 orders at once, and they'd be able to begin prepping those orders 2 at once versus just being able to prep 1 order at once. So what essentially does is it cuts down the wait time from between the pickup window and that order point, because they're already prepping 2 meals. So that makes the drive-through circulate a little bit quicker, and ultimately reduces the queuing for the entrance of the drive-through. Additional improvements would be to remove that greenhouse element that I mentioned earlier at the front of the building. That essentially is just not current to their current theme. It's an antiquated style, so they're going to remove that from the building, which reduces a little bit of the number of the seats within the building, and that'll be replaced with landscaping. So ultimately, we will be reducing the impervious coverage on the site by the removal of that greenhouse element, as well as removal of one of the parking spaces in the rear to add that additional order point, which will expand that landscape island in the back and give us a little bit more landscaping.
The cars will come in Main Street, say, and they go along the right side of the building, and they'll be there, and the order points are where?
Order points are exactly where the previous order point was. We're just adding an additional one. The previous order point was all the way to the northern portion of the driveway. Essentially, that order point is going to stay the same. We're just losing a parking space and adding a cut through where that island was, and adding an additional order point with a 12-foot wide drive-through aisle. So you're going to have 2 of them basically stacked on top of one another, kind of in a Y configuration, hence the Y drive-through, which allows the vehicle to stop and make order.
Does that work from a turning radius point of view to get into the lane to pick up your food?
Yes, yep. It's essentially the same exact radiuses that are existing today. It meets Wendy's standards for their turning radiuses. It actually exceeds their standards for turning radiuses.
Right now, the
so
board's
to make that.
coming here, but the boards are facing that way.
With these improvements, we will be losing 1 parking space. However, we are conforming with the standard number of parking spaces that are required by the town, as well as what Wendy's would require for a site of this size. Other than that, we will be, as I mentioned before, refreshing the building. Currently, as shown in the architecturals, there was additional signage being added to the building. However, we will be removing that additional signage that's proposed and essentially only replacing exactly what's there today, just bringing it into the newer sign standard for Wendy's, a newer look, but same size, same location, same thing with the freestanding sign at the front of the building. The only thing we're doing there is just replacing the sign face. The height and size of the sign will remain the same. Same with the directional signs. There's the 2 directional signs at the West Springside Avenue frontage, as well as the Main Street frontage. Those signs will remain in the same spot. They're just going to be updated to their current sign face. And unless I'm missing anything, I think that pretty much covers what we're looking for as far as their improvements.
Okay, well, it's certainly about time that the building was improved.
Yes.
And updated. It's been there since, when was it built?
I'm not sure. I want to say back in like the 60s.
84 and it opened in 1985.
80, okay. That's close to, that's a long time ago. That's good. Thank you for doing that. And also getting rid of the greenhouse, because those 2 steps down were a killer. Okay. All right. Kristen.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for the overview. Just want to hit a couple of highlights here. So for a project summary, the applicant did appear before the ZBA on July 9th. where they did receive a permit for a one-time expansion of a non-conforming use for town code, and that is for the additional drive or their Y drive proposal. So they were diligent in getting that taken care of prior to coming in before you. They had also met with town staff to sort of hit some of the preliminary comments we had given them a few months back. For seeker purposes, the proposed action is an unlisted action, subject to an uncoordinated review, so we will not be circulating for lead agency. There are a couple of items in the application, seeker application form, that just required some additional information, kind of a stickler on that. I don't know if you're picking up on that. I also had a couple of site plan comments, but having had some discussions with the planning board earlier this week and also some other town staff here, there are some additional concerns about circulation, also the number of parking spaces. And we did, as of this afternoon, something about like 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon of a planning board meeting where we get these comments in. We have some additional comments, and we actually do, some of the comments that had occurred between Tuesday and this afternoon between town staff here are on par with some of the county comments that were proposed. Carol's passing along the comments. Comments related to signage, so I'm happy to hear that it looks like you are actually going back on what was originally proposed. Again, you'd be working with the zoning administrator and going to the ZBA for anything related to variances and signage.
If we're replacing exactly what's there, the size and dimension, will we still have to go back, even if it's not an existing non-conforming sign that we're?
You would have to receive the sign permits through the zoning department, not the zoning board.
Okay, understood.
So the county also touched on pedestrian access and just use of the site. This is a Main Street area, our town center area, making things a little bit more accessible. We do note that you have, obviously you have the sidewalks at the front entrance of the site, but perhaps putting in some crosswalks just to highlight that walkability and, pedestrian access. Let's see. Also comments noting, lighting, just making sure that we're meeting town code with respect to lighting. I believe you included a lighting plan in your set, but just making sure, I think it's 0.2 foot candles at the property line.
Correct, yes. The existing lighting on site, the area lighting will remain unchanged. However, the building mounted light that basically is around the facade of the building will be updated to be LED fixtures versus the current metal halide. So they'll be remaining in the same location. They'll just be updated with new fixtures, which are now LED and more efficient, but we'll make sure that we're conforming at the property lines to not exceed those maximum allowable.
Okay, and just there are some other comments that might come up again with the board as they go around here. But just circulation and access, having access on both the Springside Avenue and Main Street. The access on Springside coming in with the order area being, they would have to circulate the entire site in order to come back. And also that aside, that's the purview of the driver. They want their food, they're gonna do that. But just being aware or some kind of indication of conflict there, just warning, I don't know. Maybe that access goes away, I'm not sure, but I'm sure you'll get some comments from the board this evening. Just wanted to point out one other thing related to the parking. Parking spaces per town code are 9 feet wide by 18 feet long. And as I understand it, the length of the parking spaces, especially on the north side of the property, might be creating some conflict with those coming in to use the driveway. So just, I think, there is also the potential of reducing some conflict at the entrance of the site off of Main Street, maybe some striping on the first couple of spaces, or maybe increased landscaping. You do have that flexibility to lose some of the parking, especially when you're highlighting the necessity of the second drive-through to keep folks moving.
I think you mentioned that perhaps if they're too short, they could angle them a little more.
Yes.
Get some extra length.
So town staff is recommending, obviously, this is the first time that this application is coming before the board. Sorry, Ben. And, comments will be heard, and, you know, we can always meet prior to another submission before the board to help you keep moving. The planning department would be happy to do that. So staff is recommending deferring action on the site plan application pending, you know, the addressing of comments that are listed from planning department and other agencies.
Good, thank you. Peter, anything from you?
Well, engineering just had some minor comments, looking at making sure that, you know, the grease trap is properly sized and it's working, and we had a couple other small things, but just looking at the plan, I know we had mentioned in here about verified the adequate number of 88 parking spaces, but looking at it, and I don't know if you've had any further discussions on this, but the 88 spaces are currently where they are, like today. But to me, they're in a really odd, like, spot. I mean, you know, right in the drive-through where cars are coming, maybe when you guys, like, discuss, you know, like, alternatives, maybe there's a better spot for them.
Yeah, that, we did discuss at a pre-application meeting. We did have the building department present. The conversation that was had at that time was related to connecting with a sidewalk to the main entrance. But having looked at, and that's something that Eric had also raised as concern, if you have folks stacked in the drive-through lane and someone's trying to turn in and park in the handicap spot or back out of that spot, that could create some conflict.
So anyways, that's something that you guys will look at. And then, like, I know you mentioned that, you know, the radiuses were okay there for, you know, the turning, but, you know, I've been there before. I'm sure that a lot of other people have too, and it's pretty tight to make that swing around now. And I think the menu board is a little further down on, you know, the drive-through aisle. So now you're going to put, you know, the menu board, you know, back in that area where you make that turn. And I don't know. I mean, I just think it's going to be tight to get a vehicle, nonetheless, you know, like a pickup truck or something like that, turned around like and squared up to, you know, the menu board. But if you guys like design these things all the time, and that's Wendy's, and they're okay with it, I guess. But it seems to me that it's going to be tight. But
Are there any other restaurants in the area that have something similar to this that what you're proposing? Well, McDonald's is off to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there another Wendy's that's looks
In the immediate area, as far as a wide drive-through in this type of configuration, not that I'm aware of, but it is similar to the McDonald's down the road. McDonald's has a little bit bigger radiuses.
Right.
What we could help to do to help alleviate that situation, we could push that order point back a little bit more to the southwest to give the vehicle a little bit more opportunity to make that turn. And we could probably increase the first portion of the radius to about 15 feet.
that's, I mean, yeah. I mean, personally, I think that would probably
Look
make,
at that, so next time we come in, we can look through that.
So that was it.
But we don't want, you know, we don't want people waiting too long to,
Get their hamburgers.
right. Or I don't want them to scuff their wheels. Okay, let's start with Ben.
I'm glad to see this Wendy's is being updated and improved. Any concerns I had were addressed by Chris and Peter with the circulation and the parking. I don't know, maybe changing the angle of the parking on the right side of the building might help. Because you got more room on the left side, but then you do have people coming off of Spring side going around. So you need it there. That's the only thing I had.
Okay, thank you. Just by way of information, they going to close the restaurant while they do all this, or operate during the construction?
Yes, it'll be closed. For a remodel like this, you're looking about probably month and a half, 2 months to complete all the interior renovations.
So they're going to redo the kitchen and redo the configuration
Yep.
inside also?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, very good.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Carl?
Yeah, so you're not demolishing the building, you're just doing architectural. When you do the new architectural, keep in mind, you know, right now we got visible HVAC, and we want all that stuff hidden on the roof there. But you know, as Kristen said, we want to see some more pedestrian access, crosswalks there. And you're going to have plenty of land in front there to put the bike rack in. A lot of people get around on bicycles in the city. As you mentioned, updating the lighters to LED, be careful of the brightness level of those LEDs, that they're not 5,000.
Absolutely. Yeah, the building mounted lights that they typically propose for the Wendy's are
like 5,000.
lower level LEDs. They're not super overpowering or bright.
Okay. Some of those things are just like looking at the sun, so. As they talked about, perhaps restriping the parking to be longer. Ideally, I'd eliminate the pole sign there too, but in favor of a monument sign. It's something you could discuss with the planning department. If you're gonna have is there a sign on the front of the building as well? I believe that's so, right?
Yes, yeah, there's a sign on the Main Street building frontage, which will be removed and replaced with the same sign.
All right, that's what I have for now.
Thank you. Nicole?
I just wanted to reiterate, water department note that the backflow prevention testing is due.
Yep. Yeah, it's yearly tested. We'll make sure the owner gets that over.
Okay. And also, the sewer department, the sewer utility and the grease trap size needs to be added to the site plan.
Okay. Yeah, the grease trap is shown near the pickup window, but we'll be sure to add the size and location.
Okay. And otherwise, all the other questions that I had were already answered, so thank you.
Ooh, that means we did a good job. Right? Means we did a good job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I want to echo everything that's been said, but I drove through there a couple times, and it's really a tight space, especially on the right-hand side. And those turn-in radiuses are going to be really tight. I'm really, I'm kind of concerned about that West Springside Avenue entrance, and it's an exit. I noticed that there's a retractable fence. Is that always there? It's like a bar that can go across, so that entrance, is that used all the time or just occasionally?
Yeah, it's always remained open, that fence that's there. It's never closed.
Right, but they put a fence there for a reason.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the reason, but I know that they're not currently using it.
I can answer that question for you. Shannon Mulcahy with Mid-Hudson Winneco and TJM. When it was originally built in 1985, what gate was closed before we opened in the morning. People used that as a cut-through to beat the traffic. It was unsafe for our workers cleaning up the lot. Now, we don't use it at all.
Oh, okay, so that was something you put in.
Yes.
Will you use that during the construction, close it off while the construction's being done?
Everything will be closed off. I mean, you know that in town. I'll have nothing left if that whole property isn't fenced off during construction.
To just piggyback on what Carl said about that pole sign, I approached it off of Raymond and made a left. I didn't even see the pole sign until I was right on it. So I'm not sure the value of that sign, and it would certainly help from an aesthetic point of view from the town.
How many times have I ended up at Taco Bell instead of the Wendy's,
Well, I was looking for the Wendy's, I said, and finally, as I got on it, I saw the building, and I said, I knew it was there, but then I saw the sign, because I guess there's trees there, and there's other signs, so, I mean, it would be, could be an improvement.
Yeah, some trimming back of some of that stuff would be appropriate, some of the vegetation. Anyway, we'll get to that. Bob?
How much of the business is drive-through versus eat-in?
Typically, in today's day and age, about 60%
Drive-through?
versus, yeah.
This location is 70% drive-through.
70%.
And is that, you think that's going to increase with this change? Just make it quicker to get through, is that it?
It may increase a little bit of volume in the beginning because everyone will be excited to go to the new location, but it's generally location-based. It remains about the same.
It's just more efficient.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's all.
I just want to add that, with that in mind, I was thinking of that earlier, is, do you have more parking spaces than you need by the code if you're going to be trying to restripe and fit in the more size spaces? Maybe there's a chance to cut back some of those, more landscaping if there's potential.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's a good plan right now. I think there's some contention with people coming off of Springside, cutting into the drive-through lane because the order board's on that side. But now with the order boards going east-west, that will solve that problem. So
Correct.
anybody coming in off Springside, as Kristen said, will have to go around the building to get in proper and get his place in line. So overall, good to
Well,
have.
it's kind of like Dunkin' Donuts on Route 9, the one we just did. You have to come in and go all the way around to get into the drive-in lane. And people know when once they,
I think it will eliminate a lot of that Springside. People do that to intentionally cut through and get in line in front of other people.
Yeah, so that will resolve that. So overall, it's going to be a lot nicer. So that's great that you're improving it.
I want to add one thing for John. I drive a Fiat and I don't have any problem with parking or circulation at that
Not much bigger than a smart car.
touche. That's very nice. But I'm not going to say anything about that. I'll wait till later. Okay. Eric, you had something?
Just a question, can you maybe for next time, just point out where the building access points are? Because I know there's some changes proposed to the sidewalks, but it's unclear what the purpose is if we don't know where the doors are.
Yep, yeah, I absolutely can. But it's located on the northern side of the building where the sidewalks are, as well as the southwestern side of the building right after the drive-through is the entrance. Which will remain the same, the access will remain the same.
Remain the same. Okay, let's go. Or I could do it.
All right. I move that the planning board defer action on this application pending a revised submittal and direct the applicant to respond in writing to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, inclusive of but not limited to the following, 1 through 8.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, the planning board defer action on this application pending a revised submittal and direct the applicant to respond in writing. The comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies inclusive of, but not limited to, the following 1 through 8. And I'll add 9 if I might, the comments from this evening.
Okay, yes, and the comments from this evening.
So, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, 6-0. 6-2.
Okay.
Back next month? You'd be ready to come back next month? Good, good. Started before the winter, hopefully.
That's the hope. Lest we have to wait another 20.
Okay, application number 6, site plan review, Paula's Public House, site plan review for current conditions and the addition of a shed and bocce ball court on a site with non-conforming restaurant and outdoor seating area, 2186 New Hackensack Road, zoned R20, residence, single family, district, 5.2 acres, type 2 action, Yobo Properties LLC, owner.
Good evening, Dennis Lynch with Day Engineering, Paul Young with Paul's Public House. As you had mentioned, we're here for the existing conditions. There was an approval back in 2016 for the exterior seating outside of 620 square feet. Unbeknownst to the applicant, that had to come back to the planning board for that approval. So that's where we are here today. We are proposing an additional bocce ball located in the rear and a shed behind the existing refuse enclosure. Other than that, there's no physical change being proposed to the site.
Yeah, the application received was identified as an application for, I think, a bocce court and a sand pit. In fact, just to go back to that 2016 approval, that was the zoning board conducted a review and approval of the one-time expansion of non-conforming use for the outdoor seating area. So that use was approved by the zoning board. The issue in front of the planning board in the application is that same section of code which provided for the expansion of use also required site plan approval. So the application in front of you today is for the purpose of site plan review and approval of the site layout, and not for the dining use, which was already approved by the zoning board. With that said, I know council has maintained that any expansion of use that's the subject of the zoning board, and so what's in front of the planning board is the site plan layout. So any proposals to expand the use to the planning board would necessarily need to be, it would be the subject of a different discussion. It's not for the planning board to make that decision.
Have they made applications to zoning for that?
They already did. They received a one-time expansion of the restaurant use.
Right, but not with these additions.
I think the zoning administrator has requested clarification that there's a lot of information in this review. It seeks additional information on the plan, and part of that purpose is for the zoning administrator to get a better understanding of the uses which exist on the site and those which are proposed so that she can make that evaluation. So at present, we're happy to see the thriving use of the restaurant there. That's a plus. That said, this site has, I don't think it's ever been, I couldn't find any records of a site plan in front of the planning board for it. So there's a lot of questions about information on the plan to be provided for your review. There's a number of points in our review having to do with what are the features on the plan, what are they, what is their purpose. And once we get that information on the plan, then we can engage it, get the zoning administrator's evaluation. There's some questions about parking layout, what are the purpose of the enclosures, and where things are, the access to the roadway. So they're all there in a list. But we need to get that information in order to kind of take next steps with the review. So the action suggested for the board tonight is, is to defer action pending obtaining that additional information. It does appear to be a type 2 action, which does not require seeker review. At the moment, there are no other involved agencies identified. So that would be the extent of the action by the board tonight.
Okay, and does the applicant or the engineer have that list of things that we need to?
We have the information. I think it would just be best to set up a meeting with planning and zoning and engineering, and we can go through and.
That'd be a very good idea, actually, yeah.
Yep.
So that'll help,
That's for all the bases.
that'll help get this all together so we can, move more quickly, if you will.
Yep.
Good, okay, anything else, Eric?
Anything?
Peter?
No.
Okay. Ben? Any questions?
I did have to say, I think there has to be, I did want to ask hours of operation, how late does the restaurant stay open? Because
We stay open no later than 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
Open at 11?
We open on Mondays and Tuesdays at 4 and close at 10. On Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we open at 11:30 and close at 11. We stop serving at 10. And on Sundays, we're open from noon until 8.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, because there's some concerns, I think, from neighbors about noise and lighting and such, so.
If I might address that?
If it doesn't go to 3 a.m. or something,
Oh, no.
that's good.
When it was a tavern, and it's rather confusing because my understanding of the history, because I've done some research, is that it's been a place to go and eat and drink since the late 1800s. And the word tavern, I've been going back and forth with the SLA. When I bought the place, I expected it to be a restaurant. And we continued with the use on the liquor license, not knowing that a tavern and a restaurant are somewhat different, apparently. And we're a restaurant now. We've always served food. But I'm 60 and I forgot the question. What was your question? I'm sorry.
A Florida moment.
Yes. You had asked about, yes, the neighbors. When it was just a gin mill.
You can back off from the microphone a little bit.
I'm sorry. When it was a gin mill, a bar, my neighbor directly across the street would tell me that people would be there till 3 a.m, throwing bottles at his front yard and breaking bottles on his rocks. And we closed at 11. and there's no more of that
Shut up
ever.
that situation.
Yeah, we're a family pub.
But there's more outside activity, I guess, is what happens too, but he's.
In the backyard, we do have,
The other thing he did mention was cooking odors. There was one case that came before the board. I think there's a possibility of some kind of scrubber that helps with the odors, Hannah, but I don't know.
cooking odors? You mean like garlic?
Garlic is good.
Well, I
Whatever is
mean,
being emitted from the exhaust fans, I would imagine.
our exhaust fans, I would not know how to measure that. I'm there most of the time, and I have a pretty good nose because I need to smell clean all the time. I've not noticed that, but I don't know how we would even measure that.
I don't know, it's something to discuss with the department, see if there's anything to.
Well, it was a comment made by one of the neighbors and there are devices, I believe, you can put into the exhaust vents or exhaust systems to.
Help filter.
To neutralize it?
Scrubber.
Yeah.
Scrubber
Okay.
or
We
filter.
can look into.
Certainly.
Something to think
Some kind of
about.
mitigation.
And I haven't been there when it's really busy. I was just curious how the parking lot works out without striping and stuff.
When I
People
first
Organized enough. for-
When I first got it, I wanted to put asphalt because I think it looks sharp. And I went to the DOT and met with Mr. Charles Walters, and he said, "Don't put asphalt. It has to be permeable. You're near the stream." And he also said, "And if you don't put asphalt, I'm not going to make you do anything." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Just when you grade it and put new item 4, please avoid my catch basins." And I was told I had to be a certain number of feet back. And he's been there to inspect it and has
So
had no
that's up to whatever they're requiring. That sounds good.
Correct.
I guess I have nothing further. I mean, bocce court there's no additional people that would be there, or?
May I just say, I have 5
already.
acres, and it's a lot of grass, and I have a lot of Italian customers. Being Italian, they say, "Why don't we play bocce? You have like all those feet." And I said, "Well, we can propose it." And the sand pit behind the garden, I have little kids. They're always bopping around in the grass, and I don't want ticks. And I said, "Let me just cover the grass with sand." And it just is much easier for the kids to play back there
Okay,
when
so
their
that's
parents.
primarily what it
It's all it is. It's just, I really am afraid of ticks, and I can't get chickens, so.
All right, thanks. That's all I have for now.
Go for it, Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Nicole.
What's your max occupancy for your,
Inside is 74 or 76, and outside is 35.
okay, so outside is 35. How many people do you have outside on the patio at one time?
I'm being told 32. At the most, it's 32.
Okay, 30.
Not 35, I'm sorry.
Okay. So you're proposing a bocce court by 90 by 13, which is regular size. At one time, one game, 8 people can play on that bocce court at one time, and that's not including bystanders. So I guess one of the things that we're concerned about is excessive noise. And we just want you to kind of regulate that. So when you have maybe like a bocce game going on or something like that, if you could kind of regulate how many people are maybe out there at one time, just so you don't get like a large amount of people outside making excessive noise, and then you're going to get neighbors complaining, you're going to have neighbors calling us and complaining. So we want to avoid that.
Absolutely. The bocce idea also, I go to Cosmos a lot.
Yeah.
And he and I chatted, and he said,
Yeah.
it's bocce, and I've seen it. It doesn't tend to be as popular as it once was.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this
No,
was just an
I
idea.
like the bocce court idea, but you can have excessive people out there at
Right,
one time.
watching
so
it.
You're somehow going to have to regulate that.
Okay.
I don't think she's proposing any seating or anything out there.
No.
That way, so that will.
Yeah.
Bocce bleachers.
Right. You're not putting in bocce bleachers, and you're probably good, I think.
Yeah, so lighting Do you have,
We have
are you
actually not
doing any
changed, no, yeah.
other lighting, like around the bocce court or
No.
above the bocce court?
No,
No.
no. We have actually not really changed any lighting. When I first got this, I was at the limit of my budget, so I had to basically build on what was there.
Okay.
So we improved the lighting and put new fixtures, but we didn't actually change any lighting.
Because I saw that you have some lighting, like at the patio area where the tables and stuff are.
Across the edge of the fence, we have those small, low-to-the-ground patio lights. I don't know what you call them. They're like string lights.
Right.
But they're low wattage. They're like 20 or 10 each.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a romantic light versus bright.
Right, okay. I just wanted to reiterate what the zoning board of appeals noted, that they do not want amplified music to be played outdoors.
I have a
Again.
question about that, if I might. We have never had amplified music outside.
Right.
If we have a festival, like we're having something for autism on the 15th of September, and we've had some things for Alzheimer's, and we get the one-time permit, and we've had a guitar player outside. But non-amplified music, so I could have a trombone section. That's why it's sort of unclear. I mean, I don't have horns outside, but they're not amplified. So that might be
I think
something,
they're thinking like outside speakers, that type of thing, but I don't know, Eric, is that something?
I think we'd have to talk to the zoning administrator and the building department about interpretation and how it applies.
right.
We have a concern about that. Someone said they were using that.
Okay.
We had a complaint from a neighbor, okay, and you have many neighbors, so, and I don't know which one, about outside speakers and excessive noise.
No, what had actually happened was we had a daytime event, and we have a side door, and someone left it open. And when that happens, you can actually hear the music outside. If that door is closed, you can't. It's actually two neighbors in the 2 years we've been there, and it's the same two neighbors. And one of the neighbors is the person who sold me the restaurant. So we have been very vigilant to not leave that side door open. It's just people will, because they think, oh, I can leave this open, it's more cool, and they open it. And now we've really instructed staff to make sure it doesn't open.
Okay. I just had a note here that your backflow prevention testing is due.
Okay.
Okay. Tomorrow?
James is saying it's happening
You
tomorrow.
gotta make sure you file it with the water department, otherwise they don't
Okay.
get a copy of it, they're gonna mark it, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Also, a note here from the fire department that your vehicle impact protection is to be installed is per the International Fire Code 312.
I spoke with Captain Quinn, and
Okay.
we're meeting, I wasn't quite, he was interesting when he said poles with cement in them, and I said, I don't think that's going to be very pretty.
Bollards.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what he meant, so he's coming over Tuesday, and we're going to discuss what he needs and how I can aesthetically make it pretty.
Okay. What's going to be in that shed?
Well, the truth is, James likes to mow the lawn himself. He loves to mow the lawn, and we currently haul the tractor, the little, ride mower from our house to the pub. So he wanted not to have to do that and just to park it.
So it's going to be mowing equipment?
Yeah, just equipment for the restaurant.
Yeah. And just mower and
Plus
shovels.
for maintenance.
Yes.
Bocce equipment.
Yeah,
That's where they keep the speakers.
right, and the trombones.
Okay.
And then the phones.
All right. Let's see here. I just had one other comment, and I'm not sure if this was already taken care of or not, but the letter from the Dutchess County Department of Health approving the increase, was that received?
We're working with
You're working with them?
yeah, we're working with them, and
You're working with them right now?
yeah, we actually have contacted the contractor that put in the septic system, and we're in the process of verifying what was there, and
Okay.
we'll work with the Board of Health to get that documentation.
I've been and met with them twice already.
Okay. All right, then I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Rocco.
Okay, Eric, a quick clarification for me here. They got this one-time approval for an expansion of 622 square feet. Are the sand pit, the bocce court, that's all included? in that 600 and?
That's part of the determination. of
Well,
the-
that's where I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure this out here, because I don't see a site plan that shows me where those 622 square feet
Well, the
are.
625 square feet is an area within the fence in the backyard that was for seating. And so it's not going to, it wouldn't include the area of the bocce court or something like that. But I guess the question is really whether those are considered accessory to the restaurant use. That's something that we're still.
And that's what we're here to try to answer.
Right.
Okay, so it's basically, has nothing to do with that 600.
625 is the
The
seating
625 is
area.
actually this area here, that's the.
Right, it's the seating area.
The seating area. I mean, with the bocce ball and the sand pit, I don't think anyone's gonna be coming there for the strict purpose of,
What's
it's
the
gonna be,
size of the
it's gonna
sand
be
pit?
the patrons that are there, they're gonna come use the bocce ball. I mean, it's not like someone's, their sole purpose would be there, so I mean, that would be an accessory use of what's going on in the, with the restaurant.
Okay. What's the size of the sand pit?
It's not very big.
It's tiny. It's just literally the grass that was behind the restaurant was just grass leading to the stream, and I was concerned, so I just put sand on it. That's about the same size, but it's not, I'm not using it, if it were lawn or if it's sand, it's not changed. I just put sand on top of grass.
This thing. Oh, is this the same?
Also, there will be no serving of alcohol or food
The way
out.
it's drawn, it shows
the sand?
that it's not a small space.
I would think it's probably.
Because the bocce court takes up approximately 120 square feet, and that looks like it's probably quite.
Where's this?
And I don't know. I know that it was just lawn. I just covered it in sand.
No, I don't either.
And there'll be no food or drink served outside of the fence of the
Except for
bocce
the
court.
patio
None of
area.
that, no.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks.
When you said you gave up the asphalt for the parking, did you look into permeable, and is it a significantly higher cost? That's why you didn't do it?
Well, I wanted asphalt, but I was told no, to not do it. I was told that it would be not positive for the stream, that it needed to be permeable, it needed to go through. I actually wanted to do oyster shell. I was recently in Cape Cod, and I loved the way it looked, and it was just cost prohibitive here. And I've been speaking to several people about some sort of a medium that won't just get dug up, that's pretty, but also functional. And so far, I'm not coming up with any brilliant ideas.
The permeable pavers and pavement is usually, it's probably double what it is for asphalt, and
Cost.
asphalt isn't cheap. So, I mean, for pervious pavement, it'd be a pretty significant cost.
Because they use permeable in the new walkway visitor center on the Ulster side. And it's porous, it solves that problem. I don't know what the cost is, that might be a
They're very nice, but they're very, very expensive.
Yeah, okay.
There's something called FlexiPave. I know that's kind of using old rubber tires and such, but I don't know what the cost of that is either, but it's a little bit soft to
not
walk
cheap.
on, and probably not cheap either.
Do you serve oysters?
Not yet.
So you could save the shells and eventually.
Or take my truck to Cape Cod and make many trips.
And the activity with Department of Health, is that to address the capacity of the 76 plus 35?
Yes, well,
And what you need to do to have the septic handle that additional?
yes, absolutely. We've discussed it. What it was, as a bar tavern, one needs more toilets. As a restaurant, one needs less. And we've noticed that really, we never really were more a bar. We were really always a restaurant. So considering we're a restaurant, we figured that as long as the Board of Health agrees,
Yeah.
we're going to be working with them.
I've eaten there a number of times, like the food, but I also drink when I'm there, so it's.
Okay, so I will make note of that. People do
Does
use the
that cloud your
bathrooms.
Does that cloud your judgment?
No.
Okay, just checking.
Remind me once again, please, are you licensed as a tavern or a restaurant?
I'm licensed as a Well, now I'm licensed as a restaurant. I'm waiting for my new liquor license to come to me. It's in the process of being changed. I did not realize a tavern was not a restaurant. When in 1940, Louis Troutwine opened it as Louis's Tavern, he served food and alcohol. So in 1940, I guess a tavern was a more popular term for a restaurant. It's somewhat semantic, but I did apply immediately when I realized that a tavern was not a restaurant.
Currently licensed as a tavern.
Until my license comes through, yes, which will be next month.
Okay.
Well, all I can say is that the last thing we want is complaints from your neighbors, and I'm glad to see that when you have a special event, you get a permit from the town for whatever that might be, and that's good. That keeps everything on the up and up. The sand pit is just for kids to play in?
That's it. I have 2 cornhole boards, and little children like it. I also give bubbles.
Have you considered a Gaga pit?
No, I had not yet, or a mud pit. But I give kids bubbles, and they go out there.
Do you know what a Gaga pit is?
I've heard of it,
I'm going to let you Google that. Okay, so that's it.
Is it something good?
Yes. Yes, actually, it's good for kids. It's a safe version of dodgeball.
Oh, okay.
The bottom line here is once we get all the data together, we need a good set of maps. Okay, we need something that we can put in a file and says, okay, this is Paula's. We have a good set of maps that represents everything that goes on and where it is and what it is and all the map notes that go associated with it, so we have a baseline. So if you ever sold a place or wanted to expand a place, we have something to go on.
Right.
We don't have that today. So that's really part of the exercise that we need to get done here. So that's all I got to say.
All right, I move that the planning board defer further action pending a more complete application from the applicant and subject to the following, numbers 1 through 8, and number 9, the comments that we've discussed tonight.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, we defer action pending more complete application from the applicant and subject to the following 1 through 9, which is made by the board, et cetera, this evening. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. We have a new chef we're trying out, so, because you.
Must be good because you're both here.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Hope to see you back soon. Okay, let's take we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, while you set up your PowerPoint and so on.
I don't. So,
Okay, we're back. I'm sure on television, we must have had a nice musical interlude, or not?
John ended it, right?
Yeah.
Tell us what you want to do.
Need the gavel?
No. I forget, here, Eric. And I think in the future, we're gonna be putting when we have our packets, it's gonna say like Paula's Public House, and it's gonna say Eric Holman Planner, or Kristen Gaynor, or whoever it happens to be, so it will know who's on first. And how about that, huh?
Can't remember from Tuesday?
No. Just like Paula couldn't remember. Okay, Hudson Heritage. Conformance and secret findings for a proposed modified development master plan for a total of 750 residential units, 350,000 square feet of new commercial space, adaptive reuse of the administrative building, main wing, and 5 other buildings, and site plan and subdivision review for Phase 1 development consisting of 125 multi-family residential units in 5 buildings with 168 parking spaces, a total of 193,300 square feet.
More?
Commercial space in 13 buildings with 1,260 parking spaces, related streets and utility infrastructure, and subdivision to 7 development lots and roads to be dedicated to the town. Good evening.
Good evening.
That's you guys. Casey. They went to sleep.
Mr. Chairman, you want me just to kind of kick it off and let it?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I was getting there.
Just for those who don't know, I'm David Cooper from the law firm of Aaron Steinmetz, serving as your special land use counsel on this matter. We've been with this project since the inception, or at least the inception of this iteration. Backing up, as your board will remember, you served as an involved agency in the SEQR review, which was taking place before the town board, because the town board was reviewing the development master plan. This is a sort of a 2-stage review process for the town. First, the applicant was proposing a development master plan, which covers the entire site. That was before the town board. In connection with that review, they served as a lead agency and took it through the entire SEQR process, up from a EIS all the way to finding statements. That review covered not only the development master plan, but also site plan and subdivision reviews, which were now going to become before your board. So now we're in sort of stage 2 of the review process, where now the applicant is seeking a site plan review, a site plan approval, as well as subdivision. In this case, they're also seeking a modification of the development master plan. In December of 2017, the town board adopted or approved a development master plan for the overall site, which had the overall development concept. It had a general layout, bulk criteria for uses, so that you had thresholds of where the uses would be placed, and size, et cetera. There was flexibility baked into that, because the understanding that as the market changes, so may the project a little bit, and so the master plan itself has flexibility, so that when it comes to your board, you're able to kind of work with them in those thresholds. And then there are also general conditions regarding mitigation measures, stemming all the way from traffic to fiscal impact. As you know, the finding statement and the EIS was a very large document. As part of the development master plan approval, the town board adopted a series of conditions, which are, I think, actually in your packet as part of the resolution of approval, about how any development at this site would occur. Fast forwarded to now, the applicant is proposing some modifications of the approved master plan. Now, the local code, your town code, provides you with the authority, your board with the authority to approve modifications to a development master plan where it's shown that the compliance with the approved master plan is either infeasible or impractical. If your board finds that the modifications are within or materially consistent with the approved development master plan and keeping with the intent of the approved development master plan, your board has the authority to modify. So that's the first portion of your jurisdiction. The second portion would be the site plan and subdivision review, which is sort of in your bailiwick, which you do for any application. In this case, the applicant, I'm sure they'll take us through it in much more detail, but the applicant is pursuing the approval for the first phase, or the sort of commercial southern phase of the property. They have every right to do that, to break it up into phases. And so that's how they're pursuing it. Also, as part of your review, as an involved agency in the SECRA review, you still have to make your own SECRA determination findings, which must be consistent with the record that was developed during the SECRA review before the town board. But in this case, before you can make a determination of consistency or issue site plan or subdivision approval, you're still going to have to adopt your own findings. The SECRA review, I think, is going to be kind of encompassed in your review of both the consistency and the site plan review. I mean, the inquiry really is going to be whether there are any, whether the modified development master plan or the site plan and subdivision proposals give rise to any potentially significant adverse environmental impacts that were not addressed, not identified, or not significantly adequately addressed through the SECRA review or in the finding statement. Your board can adopt the finding statement that the lead agency adopt if you find that the difference, you look at the delta between what was approved and now what's being proposed. If you see the delta between the two, the changes are not significant or have already been adequately mitigated, then you are absolutely able to just adopt the finding statement that has already been adopted by the town board. That is sort of going to be encompassed in your review. What we've sort of the staff and consultants have discussed and we've discussed offline is in thinking about this review, the threshold issue for the board should be the consistency determination in terms of the development master plan. Because in the event, if your board finds that it is consistent and keeps it with the intent, then you can adopt the modification or approve the modification. Your board finds that it's not consistent, then it has to go back to the town board for amended development master plan, which in that case would change the review a little bit. So obviously we think it makes most sense from a review standpoint, at least, to be comfortable with that modification, and then dive into the site plan and your typical site plan review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a little warm up a second.
Pardon me?
That's good.
Okay, thank you. I'm Marty Berger with Sabre Real Estate Advisors, and I've been before you a few months ago. With us tonight is Stuart and Kyle from Chazen Engineering, Joe Kenton from Sabre, and Peter Wise, our land use attorney with Del Bello Weingarten. So what I'd like to do is walk you through really a progress and update report on where we are, and just follow up on a couple of points that David mentioned. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I have copies which I'll hand to the board at the conclusion, and we can also leave it for you electronically as you like. Following up on what David mentioned, I'm not concerned that you'll have any problem with the consistency of the site plan that was approved to the site plan that is before you now, because the modifications, as you'll see, are extremely minor. They're more in terms of the type of apartment versus house and the breakup and the mix of units and similar type of minor issues. Improvements, I think, in the layout of the commercial configuration. And we have had our staff and our people put together comparison analysis that have been supplied to the planning board staff and their third-party consultants. So I'm sure that that's being looked at, and I'll go through, and I think at the end of the day, the consistency is there, and as you'll see tonight, and you hopefully come to your own conclusion, that the impacts are no greater. However, the financial and fiscal impacts, in fact, are a little bit better. So with that said, the
Last time I was here, I told you that Sabre has a background and history of creating live-work environments, and I showed the planning board a couple of examples that we've recently completed and that we're involved with. And we came as a partner into this development with EFG at the point in time that they had an approval of commercial and housing. But really, they had a product or a design that is hard to be marketed in today's times. So we kind of came in and created what we call a live-work community. And we went to the large users in the area, including the educational community and the healthcare community, and tried to use them and get them excited about this as an amenity to their current facilities and an amenity to Poughkeepsie. With that, with having education and healthcare, we were able to attract and solidify some retailers and some supermarkets, and we're able to attract interest of multifamily developers, including ourselves, and we're even able to attract 55 and older. So what we've done, as you'll see, is we've broken up the approved residential, which was into various uses that together will create an intergenerational community that's walkable and that has the benefit of being able to live on the site, to be able to drop your child off at a daycare center, to do your grocery shopping, to work nearby, to get medical services, so on and so forth, along with a hotel component. So I'll show you all of that, and I'll show you the comparison of the similarities. And before that, I'll give you a progress update as to where we are in the snapshot. So we're at the position where we've listened carefully to the ideas and recommendations of the town professionals, and I think that we've incorporated all of the suggestions into the materials and plans that we have tonight. We have completed all the site plan related drawings and the studies necessary to be here tonight in front of you. We have commenced the construction drawings for the off-site improvements so as to be able to start the Route 9 traffic and sewer improvements as quickly as possible. We've pursued it with the DOT and with all of the governmental agencies. We've been in touch with the state, and we've coordinated with all of the state agencies. We've retained an architectural firm that specializes in the adaptive reuse of older buildings, such as the administration building, and we'll show you some examples and show you who they are. We have received commitments from the anchor users for our development. We procured construction financing from a regional bank that we've done multiple deals with before. We have sufficient equity in our bank account and our partners' commitments to fund the entire development. And probably most important and exciting is that we've started the first phase of the asbestos and demolition of the south buildings. That is a contract that's far in excess of $10+ million. And the first phase, before you do the actual asbestos and demolition, is the buildings have to be cleaned out. So that is almost $1 million of expenditure. We've released the contractor. We've paid him his significant deposit. That they've been in there for about 2 weeks now. They'll have about another 6-7 weeks of work. As long as we can keep moving, we're going to keep them moving, and we hope that they'll be able to continue all the way through. It's about a 6th or 7th month process to complete all of the asbestos and demolition work. But as long as we're proceeding, we're going to have them hopefully continue on. In summary, the approved plan and the proposed plan are side by side, extremely similar, and I'll walk you through some of the changes or modifications. In essence, we tried to make the, actually I'll flip slides and I'll show you where we are. From the original approved plan, we attempted to increase the walkability, the connectivity, pardon me? We okay?
No, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. We've increased the walkability and the connectivity to Route 9, as well as the uses within the development. We've created a main street, which we'll show you, that connects to residential through the retail component and then connects to Route 9. We've incorporated 7.8 miles of trails in the Great Lawn as well as around the development. We believe we've improved the main street with a town setting, which I'll show you. We've broken up the retail to be smaller establishments with connectivity between them, which is more responsive to what's happening in retailing today. And we broke up the housing into various components, various multifamily price points, as well as multifamily for youngers, as well as multifamily and freestanding townhomes and homes for 55 and older. Also, we've eliminated the parking in a landfill area. If you recall, to the south of the approved supermarket, there was parking in a landfill area. That's been eliminated. We believe that what we've done is consistent with the town policies of being significantly higher walkable. We've connected the buildings closer together. We've laid it out so that we've encouraged patrons to stroll the streets. As you'll see, we've added the trails. We've created this town center, which I'll show you, created this main street, which I will show you, and we've modified the retailer and restaurants. Overall, the development is pretty much as it was. It's a 150-room branded hotel with conference capability. We have a user that's planning on having a sizable education performance center. We have a supermarket. We have a medical office building that's offering urgent and primary care, daycare center, restaurants and shops. Complies with all the ADA and parking requirements. We've incorporated an amenity-rich Main Street with a town center, quality housing, 55 and older. We are proceeding with the restoration of the Great Lawn, the trails, and the preservation and adaptive reuse of the administration building with 5 other buildings. There's a chart that compares and shows the material consistency between the approved and the development, the proposed plan, and I'm sure you'll study that, and the supporting studies have also been submitted to your professionals. When you look at the comparison, the highlights I think you'll see is that we'll have 450 construction-related jobs with 20.7 million in paid earnings, 851 permanent jobs at full build-out, with 33.6 million paid to employees annually. It's a net increase of the total taxes per annum of $791,000 to $8.4 million. We've had a very nice welcoming from seniors, and our experience with seniors is that they no longer want to retire in isolated environments or out in the fields, but they'd rather be part of intergenerational communities where they could be part of a community where they see young people, where they see teenagers, college kids, where it's easy for them to go to restaurants, do their grocery shopping, where they have continuing education, theater, dining, and so on and so forth. And this is a trend that we've seen quite often, and we've incorporated into some of our other developments. It works well here because of the population that's 55 and older with the average income, and it's an increasing need. We have been in touch with several of our co-developers that specializes in this. We've had 2 or 3 site tours, and we have more coming up or continuations of them. So we plan that a portion of the development will be able to be a dedicated independent living 55 and older community that will be tied into the educational center, be able to use the primary care, hopefully not the urgent care, and be able to integrate with younger people throughout the community. A recent example is what Purchase College is doing, where they're adding senior housing to to their campus, and they view it as an attraction to have the older generation involved with the young generation on campus and also taking part in classes and theaters. And you see this all over, but this is the most recent one in purchase. I hope you're laughing when I say 55 and older as being, old.
No, she meant that.
I'm planning on changing it to 75 and older. So we are planning to proceed with the incorporation of the administrative building into the hotel development. And toward that end, we have brought on board a very esteemed architectural firm named Deborah Burke Partners and a fellow named Stephen Brockman. I'll show you what his work has been. But he specializes in preservation of older buildings. He's taken a look at all of our buildings, and in fact, he's coming back on September 7th to continue his work. But if you go to the next slide, Stephen and his firm just completed the Richard Olmsted campus in Buffalo, New York. It's a Kirkbrand building where they successfully converted it and expanded it into a hotel development and conference capability. That building, quite honestly, was in a much better shape than our building is, but he's working on planning a design accordingly. This is the interior when you walk into that building. And just to continue, the next is a building, a hotel in Amsterdam, which restored portions of the prior building, and then behind it added new buildings and new elements to it. And also on the next sheet, Vassar College did something similar. I don't know what the history was as to why they only used portions of the building, but it gives you an idea. And so we're dedicated to continuing to proceed with the view of incorporating the administration building into the hotel.
We take credit for that.
The commercial center down here, this Main Street area, we modeled after King of Prussia Town Center, and I'll show you the site plan here in a few minutes. But at King of Prussia Town Center, it's similar to our uses. They have large supermarket, Wegmans. They have one or two other large department stores. They have a 55 and older 5-story building. They have a multifamily development and a graduate student housing, and it all kind of works together. And if you go to the next slide, what they've done is basically create a main street that's quite activated, and it connects on one end the multifamily and the 55 and older to the other end, which is more of the retail shops and community. What it has is basically parking behind the buildings with 1 or 2 cut-throughs for cars to energize the streets. It has seating areas and gathering areas, as well as wide sidewalks for pedestrians, for bicyclists, as well as for outdoor seating and cafe. So using this model, go ahead, Joe. We created this main street here, and we did it for 2 reasons. We did it, number one, to create good connectivity between Route 9 and the residential, which is on the northern end of the site, and to create a comfortable, nice walking route so that people aren't walking through the middle of a parking lot. In a previous plan, we didn't have that. So here we have a walking path where people can, be involved. They're not competing with cars. They have retail on both sides. They can stop for coffee. They can relax and continue on their way. Next sheet. So here's this is a rendering that the architect did of what our little portion of our main street will be, and there'll be outdoor seating areas, as I said, wide sidewalks, outdoor seating. Parking is behind it, and the buildings are broken up into components of 6,000 to 9,000 square feet, so that they're close enough where you can park anywhere and walk between the buildings to the main street and vice versa. And of course, it's connected to the supermarket in the back, and up the hill is the residential where hopefully you'll live. Go ahead. another view of what we're proposing on Main Street. So what's nice about this also is that it's an opportunity for each of the buildings to have its own architectural feel. It won't, the intention is that it's not going to look and feel like a mall or a shopping center where every store is the same. It has the opportunity where each building could be independently designed and occupied by tenants with their own exteriors on the outside. Go ahead. This is the site plan for the King of Prussia, which, as you'll see, has a 55 and older independent living on the bottom left, and then student housing, and then multifamily buildings. And those three buildings are five, six-story plus buildings to the left, and they're kind of connected by that Main Street, which has the walkability and the small shops and boutiques and restaurants with the seating areas. And as you can see, there's parking behind it. Architecturally, we do plan to take advantage of the look and feel of the administrative building on the north end of the site. And, when we talk about the look and feel of the project with our architectural team and our users, we're encouraging them, and we'll have design guideline standards that will have the use of materials similar to what's in the neighborhood. And we think, Marist College has done an excellent job in combining, wood and stone, et cetera. So in summary, we have about 100,000 square feet of uses that are planned. Our schedule, as I said, is we're here now with the application for the site plan approval and the subdivision. We've started the asbestos work. We plan to continue the asbestos and demolition work through the winter. We plan also to start the sewer upgrade along Route 9 as quickly as possible, as well as the Route 9 improvements, continuing the site work and off-site through spring. Summer of 2019, actually May, we're planning to commence vertical construction and to be delivered buildings in spring, summer of 2020. So I just wanted to highlight that our commitments and our initial work will be all of the off-site work as well as the main roads all the way through the development. So the first thing we'll do is bring the main roads and the utility lines, the sewer, the water, and the electric through the entire site. And then with that, our first phase is basically everything south. So it'll include these 5 multifamily buildings. It includes the medical office, probably half the retail space as well as the supermarket. So all of that will basically be what we're undertaking to go vertical right away. As quickly as we receive commitments for the educational facility and solidify that, and as quickly as we receive commitments for the 55 and older, as well as the hotel, we're going to continue with that as well. Did I miss anything? We'll hand this out, and you'll see them in terms of material consistency. The proposed land uses are permitted under the amended zoning. We're not modifying them. We're not increasing them. The traffic generation, we've determined, requires no new improvements, but your traffic person, I know, will look at that. There's no residential units. We're still at under 350,000 square feet of commercial uses. No change, and we have the 80,000 square feet of the adaptive reuse of the landmark administrator building. There's no change there. That's it. We're basically ready to go, as we are going now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to give these out to the board members?
I think we've kind of outlined, the staff report outlined the things that David really spoke about earlier, so, which is the process that we're looking at.
Yes, so in connection with the application, the materials that were submitted included a analysis of the difference between the approved development master plan and the proposed master plan, although I think Marty gave a very good summary, and it's being handed out right now as well, of the main issues that you would be looking for. I think you should know that obviously your planning consultants, traffic consultants, engineers are currently going through the materials. They're pretty hefty materials, which is a good thing because the board wants its record to be pretty solid, and making sure that all of the information that you would need to make a determination of consistency or inconsistency before you. I think to the extent that any board member now has questions about, well, are there any items that you want to discuss, whether what has the change been, why is it going to be consistent? Now would be a good time to at least start that conversation because it will guide staff in terms of as we're reviewing the materials, and also to the extent that there's any unanswered questions that the applicant can get to us as quickly as they can to keep the process moving, that'd be great.
I will add that, there's a lot to digest here, and I'm sure all of you are working your way through those materials, as are, both Liz Axelson from Morris and Anthony Russo, who's our traffic consultant from AKRF. So, I mean, there's a lot that we'll be looking at, following tonight, but I think, as David said, if you have questions about any of these, especially the threshold issues that we're talking about, it would be good to get them out on the table for us to be aware of.
So I think maybe we could just have a general discussion instead of going around. If anybody has any questions at this point, put them on the table.
The housing units, are you expecting some percentage to be families with children?
Yes, we hope so, certainly hope so. We don't know exactly what the demand is for what type of uses and housing sizes. We're planning initially on doing these first 5 buildings as multifamily apartments, almost like a townhouse and/or apartment type settings. And we're not going to say any of these are one type of housing versus another, open it up and see what sort of interest and demand comes. We are talking to 55 and older independent development companies about taking an area and creating their own community there. That will probably be a combination of 2 types of products. One, a 3-story type of building with product, as well as secondly, freestanding homes and independent townhomes. Other than that, the future is unknown as to exactly what type of housing. I think at the moment, we're planning on at least having between the multifamily and the 55 and older, 400 plus units.
As you mentioned somewhere, 750 housing units?
There are 750 that have been formally approved historically, and there are 750 that are shown on its site plan. So our immediate plan for the multifamily and the 55 and older is probably in the 400 range.
So based on other places like this who've implemented something, how many children of school age would be there? And what's
the last one that we did, we had 220 units, and we had 23 children that were planned, and I think we have 11.
Okay. And what school district is this going to be in?
Hyde Park.
Hyde Park.
There's been a significant demand for child daycare in the area. We sent out some surveys, and the number 1 requirement in the neighborhood was supermarket, and the number 2 was child daycare. So it's good because people can actually, drop their child off in the morning, get coffee, go to work, come back, do their shopping, go for dinner, pick up their child, and go home. And the child daycare operator that we're talking to will develop specific programs for the larger users in the community.
You mentioned single family. I assume you didn't mean individual homes, attached units, townhomes or that type of thing?
what we have visioned and planned for the first 400 will be a combination of multifamily and attached type townhomes with two-story.
Okay.
There's many more in the back that in the future we don't.
Attached townhomes versus individual houses.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Right, the original plan had 25 individual houses as well in the current development master plan, but they're proposing to eliminate those 25 in favor of townhomes. I just want to say overall, it's, from what I've read so far, it's definitely an improvement over the previous plan. I like the fact that you've gone for a smaller supermarket versus a big box Walmart-sized store, as well as the definite streetscape that you've improved here. The pedestrian-friendly streetscape is ideal. But, keeping all that with the wide sidewalks, some outdoor dining, benches, bike racks, all those amenities are going to be a plus.
If I can interrupt you for a moment, I think there are a couple of primary differences. Number one, it's viable and ready to go, and it's now. The development that was approved was something that would take many, many years, if ever, to occupy. Because we've broken up the uses into so many different components, a hotel, 55 and older, multifamily at different price points, a smaller supermarket, and smaller retail, and medical office, we have the ability to start all of those, or many of those, at the same time, which gives the plan the viability. The demo in asbestos is well north of $10 million. The site infrastructure, just to start, is far in excess of $15 million. When we finish the south portion, we'll still have an investment before we get to the north, far in excess of $20 or $30 million. The only way that we're going to be successful and recoup the investment is to basically be successful in completing the north and most of the housing.
Okay, the whole thing. So that's phase 2 as well. I want to encourage you, as you do the demolition, to work with the town historic commission to, look what elements can be saved or used or reused, whatever.
Sure, yeah. I think that the 5 buildings or 6 buildings that we're saving will probably need a lot of the material that's in the buildings that we're going to be taking down.
Okay, you'll be reusing some of that material in the...
We're planning on using all of it. We're planning on crushing the concrete, crushing the material, and using it as sub-base, and to the extent that it's appropriate for fill. Yeah.
Okay. Marty?
Can you mention, you said it had like an extra almost 5 miles of trails. Where is that?
Joe, can you walk us
number
through
come out from?
Sure. So hold on, let's pull this up. So with the new plan, we're showing the similar amount of trails throughout the Great Lawn, but it's the amount of walkability that's throughout the entirety of the site that gets you to the 7.8.
Okay, more sidewalks and everything.
Correct, yeah. When you compare it to the other plan, this is a better example. There isn't quite as much walkability within the actual buildings, and so that's where you get the additional mileage.
Okay, thanks.
There's 1.3 miles or so in the Great Lawn itself of walking trails, and then there's the path that connects to the existing trail system and the balance within the site for walkability.
I know you've mentioned...
I had a question.
Marty, I know that you're right, there is a need for senior housing in this area. I was wondering, do you expect to attract any commuters? White Plains has become a small New York City, and New York City itself, of course. Do you expect to have people live here and commute to the city or to White Plains, or is it just local people?
I really don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. The studies that we're showing aren't relying on any of that. I think it's really relying on, number one, the growth in eds and meds within the county and the need for higher quality housing to attract staff and professional. The new medical residents that are coming on board, the amount of doctors and staff that they're going to have, first and foremost, satisfying the existing need within the community. I think that we will attract the 55 and older developers. We've created a lookbook of why this works for them, and we've met with two of them several times and discussed this. They typically wouldn't want to come this far out of a metropolitan area based on the demographics. However, because of the combination of the eds and meds and all of the attractive tourist type things to do in the area, they're taking a serious look at it, and I think we'll be successful with them.
Okay, yeah, this is a good place for people to retire. Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll get commuters. I mean, my stepfather worked on Avenue of Americas, and now we live close to Marist College, or they live close to Marist College. I had a question, and I don't know if now is a good time to ask it or not, but are you guys going to be doing something with that road that leads to 9G?
Yes, that road that leads to 9G through the back of the site is planning on being upgraded with the rest of the road, completely all the way through.
Will you go all the way to 9G? Because that road is a mess. Like, I went to the site the other day.
Yeah, I can't.
Will you go all the way to 9G or just to like the church?
I don't know the answer.
Just to the property line.
To the property line.
You don't own all the way.
We don't own it.
Yeah, so it would just be to the church and then the other access point, right?
Church is actually off. It would be to the back.
Just to the back.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Okay.
the churches.
The church is up a little bit further. Okay. Okay.
I have a feeling though we'll be fixing the road because we're going to be probably fixing the sewer and the utility lines all the way to Route 9, so at least that portion will be.
Because that road's a mess. Absolutely. Okay. Also, and again, I don't know that this is the right time to ask this, but do you really think the completion of this project will be 2025?
Well, I think that all of this will be 2021.
No,
So-
I'm saying the entirety, so phase 1 and phase 2.
The answer is I think that it will be, with the exception of maybe 100, 200 of the homes. There's no question that our intention and plan is to build a hotel, the administration building, and all of this right up front as quickly as we can. This is not, in our minds, phase 2. It's just a question of how quickly we can receive the commitments for those uses. If we had the commitments in the next 6 months, we would just continue at the same time we're doing the south with that.
Since you brought up the administration building, can you make some comments on what the condition is now after the fire, and what are you doing to try to protect it going forward so that you can do the adaptive reuse as a boutique hotel or whatever else you're thinking at this time?
The damage to the administration building was the fire, not even the fire, because Perkin doesn't burn per se, but really the water. The amount of water and the weight of the water that went into the building to fight the fire did the most damage. The rain and the elements aren't going to affect the building and the structure. We had the structural engineer and our staff and the architect look at it, and the recommendation is not to scaffold it and not to tarp it, because in doing that, you're going to be putting weight and stress on areas that currently don't have the weight and the stress. Their recommendation, as she said, was get in there as quickly as possible and do something with it. So toward that end, we've engaged, we think, a world-class architect that specializes in this, and as soon as we can start conversations with users of the hotel and figure out how we can incorporate it, we'll start that design phase and process, and then based on how we're going to use the existing building, we'll start doing the appropriate engineering tests and reports. Because even if we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to test the integrity of the building today, if we start in 8 months or 10 months or a year, it's going to be a completely different, it could be a completely different situation. But either way, even if it's not, we're going to have to redo all of the tests then.
I know a lot of money went into protecting it as it was, but now you've lost the roof and such, so it's a, I mean, I was gonna bring up the Hotel Henry in Buffalo, and it looks like you already have looked at that, and that's a nice example of adaptive reuse.
Bring it up. Yeah, I think they all are. I mean, this is a great example. It's really beautiful, it's highly productive, it's highly utilized. They started with a complete building.
Yes, it was likely not fire damaged and more intact when they began, but I'm not aware of all the history of that, but. I just had a question on traffic, and you kept mentioning the Route 9 improvements. I can't remember if that included a right turn lane in northbound off Route 9 or
Right turn.
or a left turn lane going south. I'm just concerned about, there's a lot of commuting traffic at night that gets bogged down going through there, heading north to Hyde Park, and if there's a right turn lane that can come out. Not sure how much you've studied that yet.
There's two full intersections right there.
Yes. Yes, so at the southern intersection, just north of Home Depot, there is a little, I believe it's a bus drop-off, actually, right in front of Mobile. That will be extended, and that will become the right turn lane into the project.
Okay, so you plan on queuing any number of cars there, or just?
Yeah, I mean, based on the existing curb that's there, you have at least 5 cars, but being a right turn lane, it shouldn't really queue too much.
All right, I'm just concerned about the northbound flow, and that's good.
Right, so that should help keep that moving.
Potentially, there could be a left turn lane coming southbound as well into the site, but not sure if that's as a.
Yeah, I'd have to check.
As a
The
needed.
Mazur's plans.
Do you remember, Anthony?
Yes. I'm looking at the proposed improvements from the study, and there is a recommendation for a southbound left turn lane into the site, as well as the northbound.
So that will keep things flowing pretty well, that's
And just so you know, when the traffic study was performed by the applicant's traffic engineer, and reviewed by AKRF, your consultant, queuing at the lanes was looked at to make certain that the lanes were long enough to accommodate the queuing going into the site.
Okay, great.
So our plan is to be able to do all of that, as well as the signalization of the intersections right up front.
And getting lined up with the Quiet Cove Park entrance.
That's correct, yeah. Once we do that, we'll be able to control the construction traffic and limit it to one, and have the other one preserved for residents and future uses.
And I think I see its plans are small, but I think I see a sidewalk that also goes from your northern entrance down toward your southern entrance to connect into the Marist.
Yes.
Northern
yeah.
entrance.
Yes, we have a sidewalk all the way down there with connectivity to Marist. And we actually, in the middle of the commercial on Route 9, we put a break. I don't know if you can see it, but we put a break there so that people don't have to come to one intersection or the other, but they can come right up the middle and walk in.
Okay, good. So there's a couple different ways in.
The original. Yeah, I see that you've got a connection plan to the rail trail. But I noticed a comment in there regarding a possible issue with a right-of-way from railroad-owned land. Did I misinterpret that?
Oh,
I'm not familiar with that.
CSX owns the land still.
Right. It's the idea is that the county wants to have a future connection there, so we can put the trail to the stub, but until the county or some other public entity acquires the
Okay,
right of way.
so you can only go to the CSX property.
Right. So the county in the future would like to get the right of way, and then we can connect them.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be ideal, because that's a highly used trail, and that would be a great amenity.
We have somebody in our staff that is very friendly with CSX, so we can maybe push that along.
That could be helpful, because that would certainly be a great amenity for getting access to the walkway and the rail trails from your residents.
I was looking to see if he's here tonight, but he's not.
And you can talk to Marist about that too. It could help out their students in their dorms get onto that trail.
This is really intended in part to be an amenity for Marist as well as expansion capability. You go around the country, you see all sorts of live-work communities with restaurants and bookstores and grocery stores that are close to college campuses that have medical components and health components to it, and there's a great amount of synergy between them.
Yeah, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, I appreciated the synergy you had with Marist College with some of the things that they could need. They could use the hotel, they could use the life center studies building, et cetera. I wondered if you also were looking at a relationship with the culinary, with all these restaurants you're adding in.
We would like to, we hope to, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Marty. I'm sitting here listening to your presentation and seeing all this, and I truly appreciate the fact that over the last few months, you've really been listening. And this is a product of that, so it's very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Very nice. Okay, I don't think we need to do anything formal. There's nothing we can do, but, we look forward to your coming back and we'll see what we can do to move this forward.
Thank you very much for your time, and I gave you the handouts, and if you want it electronically, just let us know and we'll make it available as well.
Yeah, if you got a PDF, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we'll communicate with you some more following tonight's meeting, but I know we're going to work, in the next week or so to get something coordinated with our team to talk about our schedule for reviewing all these materials and especially focused on the consistency question that we've been talking about. So.
Can I just a couple things I wanted to observe. There was a question before about children and families and the demographic analysis that was done for the FEIS and the previously approved master plan and the one that was done for this current revised master plan was all based on all the units being regular rental units. They're all rental. None of them were identified as seniors, so when they did their analysis, they assumed that each unit could produce a child. Not an entire child, a fraction of a child, if you will. But even though they are proposing some senior housing possibly, that hasn't been, deducted from that. I'm really grateful to hear that you have employed an architectural company that deals with reuse of historic buildings. I think that'll work out well for you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You mentioned before that you started discussions with the, agencies like DOT and others, for the improvements that are going to be needed for the permits. Can you tell us where you are in that process? Is this very beginning of it, or where are you?
As far as I know, tell me if I'm wrong, but the improvements off-site were fully approved. The construction drawings and documentations need to be completed. So the engineering firm is currently completing the drawings necessary in contact with DOT. And we have Verdi Electric, who does a lot of work off-site, helping us in expediting the construction drawings to make sure they're correct and working with DOT. So I think, I'm not sure what percentage complete their drawings are at the moment, but we're hoping that in the next couple of months they're 100% complete and submitted to DOT, and we're going to push it through as quickly as we can.
The reason I ask is because the mitigation, there was upon initial occupancy, there was a whole list of mitigation that was going to be done right up front for the traffic.
We're completely familiar with that, and we're committed to that.
And what we wanted to see, and I spoke to your traffic consultant today, Phil Greeley at Mazer, we wanted to see the trip generation associated with the initial phase, the first phase, to make certain that traffic generation matches with what the mitigations needed to offset any impacts.
Right.
So we wanted to be involved in that process to see that, and also to hear what DOT has to say about that as well.
I think that he has that work ready for you because he did that analysis as part of the study that was submitted to show the consistency between the impacts of the prior approval and the impacts now. So he had to compare the trip generation under the approved versus the plan.
I saw it for the total project, the full build-out, but in order to phase the traffic improvements, we need to see it trip generation phase by phase in order to know what improvements need to be put in.
Understood.
Okay. And for your construction entrance, any permits needed from DOT, any road closures that are expected? Are you at that level yet to know that?
I think we have it worked out. I don't believe we're planning on closing any roads at all, but we'll make a note and follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. That's good. Okay, I think we're done for tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience for a pretty long meeting tonight. Okay, other matters, D1, great. I don't think we need a motion.
I can make one if you want.
Would you like to make a motion? Carl wants to make a motion.
Sure, I'll move that we defer action on this submittal pending further review by staff and consultants.
Second. Thank you.
We moved in second, we defer any action on this proposal pending further review. Call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. Okay, that makes it official. Greystone Apartments, a time extension for an approved site plan to convert the existing offices in the basement and first floor of 36 Violet Avenue into 6 one-bedroom apartments. 36 and 42 Violet Avenue, zoned RM Residence Multifamily District, 0.647 acres. Conditional site plan approval was granted on August 3rd, 2017. Greystone Programs, Inc. owner. I move the planning board grant 2 90-day time extensions of conditional site plan approval from August 3rd, 2018 forward to January 30th, 2019. Moved and seconded, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. Beacon Residential, 297 Violet Avenue, time extension for a previously approved site plan to construct a new 2-story residence of 4 units. 297 Violet Avenue, zoned RM Residence Multifamily District, 0.445 acres. Conditional site plan approval was granted September 14, 2017. Beacon Residential LLC owner. I move the planning board grant 1 90-day time extension of conditional site plan approval from September 14, 2018 forward to December 13, 2018.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. Anything else we need to discuss?
I don't believe so.
Michael, Kristen, Eric?
I move we terminate the meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we terminate the meeting, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion, I oppose, motion carries 5-1.
Keep it going.
But you want that Gaga pin.
We just need to keep this going.
He wants to Google Gaga.
So we did what, 4 hours?
Yeah, that's a long meeting.
We used to start at 7.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can already feel a little tired and grumpy.
Hungry?
Yeah. Did the mics off and all that stuff yet?